You know, man, I've just been dealing with documents all morning, and I realized that lawyers, they go through law school, they do all this stuff, and then they charge you money. Half the stuff you can do yourself is just a pain in the ass.
Actually, I don't agree that it's just simply a pain in the ass. I believe that it is a mental trauma, to a psychological trauma to deal with all this paperwork, because the paperwork is it's always very vague, and it's easy to make a mistake, and people are traumatized from the bureaucratic rigmarole. And the reason why they're so scared of it is because they know somebody's going to find something wrong, and they're going to have to redo it, and it's going to take another 6 weeks and 6 months. It's going to charge you something, and so a lawyer is a person with superpowers. A lawyer is a person who can deal with that without the same mental trauma that the average person.
Well, they're emotionally disconnected. They're emotionally disconnected. Not only superpowers, they have some kind of connections apparently.
No, they know how to navigate the
system,
the soul crushing, mind numbing death of the human soul, which is bureaucracy. They can so people will pay top dollar to have someone do that because they can, and because it's not human, it's an inhuman thing.
It's also amazing that people will pay top dollar, but also there's a thing of like, if there's like a friend who refers you, or like someone they know who refers you to them, they apparently will give you a heavy discount. And it's funny because if you call them just like on your own, and you say, how much do you charge for such and such? They'll be like, oh, this is the price. And then like a person's been doing business with them for years, ask them the same thing in your stead, in your name, they'll be like, oh, it's whatever, 30% cheaper.
Well, I mean, it's not, I don't think that's dishonest. I think that...
No, it's not dishonest.
You want to maintain a business connection.
Yeah, it's a connections game, that's all it is.
Yes, you want to, you say, oh, my cousin needs something. Well, sure, I'll give him a family discount, because you want to maintain that relationship.
Yeah. So, that's the story. So this is a
Passover episode, and I'm sick.
Oh man, I have a question. What happens if a person literally accidentally, because of like, I don't know, the person hasn't slept in like 48 hours or 24 hours, accidentally eats chametz on Pesach? Totally accidentally, because they're just like, I don't know, their brain is gone because of lack of sleep. Something happens and all there is to eat is chametz.
So you're saying there's like, is there like a solar system that explodes in the Andromeda galaxy?
No, I mean, we know that eating chametz is correct. But obviously the person is not correct because they didn't mean to eat it. It wasn't even intentional.
You know what I heard recently? I don't know where I heard this. Maybe I heard this from you. That there's no karet without the Bet Hamikdash.
No, there's no. I don't remember ever saying that, but I heard something like we don't. I mean, we are all tamei met, meaning we are considered like dead people. That's why we can't go to Har Bayis. That's another thing, but I never heard the whole. We can't be correct. I mean, I know.
I wouldn't say we're considered like dead people. It's just we are ritually impure from touching death.
Yeah. Well, it says tamei mes. That's what it means. Not like dead people.
Ritual.
Yeah.
By the way, karet for the folks at home, it means to be cut off. It's a spiritual excision.
Yeah.
Where your soul is cut off from the. Well, in the case of Israel, your soul is cut off from all the other souls of Israel.
Yeah.
I am not very knowledgeable as to the dynamics of that.
Yeah.
Right away the mind's like, well, can you get back in?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
Yes. La. I gotta get that down.
How to lie, how to ha.
Even when I lie.
I could play this.
Don't play nothing. Don't play.
Don't play nothing. Don't play nothing. So nibble pay. We don't want to hear that. By the way, I just want to dedicate this episode to may the neshama of Chaim Yosef Zev Ben Fega have an incredible aliyah. Was nifter yesterday. Will be buried in Eretz Israel, B'ezrat Hashem. We'll need a lot of miracles for that to happen, but it will happen. It's Pesach, so the miracles are going to happen. And
we got to be more ambitious with our miracles.
Yeah, and honestly, I hope that I hope that before I go visit the kever of this person, B'ezrat Hashem, soon, that he will have arisen from there. If not before, then when I go. And then I can talk to him again, because he wasn't able to even speak properly for about a year prior to being nifter. So he could understand everything I was saying. He just couldn't. He could even walk and move around. And we played ping pong about a year ago, or tennis or whatever, badminton. You know, he was quite mobile, but he just couldn't every other word didn't come out. But, because like the brain doesn't, after a certain kind of stroke, the brain doesn't connect with the tongue. The person knows exactly what they want to say, they just can't say it.
Right.
So, listen, man, there's machinery and then there's a neshama. Sometimes, you have a computer, the files are there, everything is there, but the hardware, something's malfunctioning,
Yeah, absolutely. No, we are the software. The hardware is the body.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I like how there's only really, if you're gonna go miracles, and making sure everything runs smoothly in terms of a burial is not ambitious enough. Miracle is what you said, and also, people say that person should have an aliyah, right? Their neshama should have an aliyah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that anymore, because I learned, and I wanted to mention this in the last conversation or before, that the neshamas are all anxiously waiting to come back here.
Yeah.
They're all because apparently, not because it's so terrible where they are.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
But they know that this is where it's at. This world is where it's at. This is where God. This is where his attention is focused on, if you so to speak, right? This is the world that he wants. So they want to come back here for that reason alone.
Well, can I read to you what I think I read this to you before? What Manis Friedman said right when 2 years ago when COVID hit, and people couldn't go to shul to say Kaddish.
Yeah, he said they don't need it.
So I just quoted him directly. So I wrote. He said, "Who created the situation? God did. Who says we need to say Kaddish for someone who passed away? God does. So when God creates a situation when you can't say Kaddish, what is God telling you? That there is something happening in the world today that when a person who passes away does not need Kaddish to enter Gan Eden. What a compliment to all those people who just passed away. We won't be able to say Yitzchar this Pesach. Why? Because Yitzchar means we need to remember someone who passed away. But now we have to start looking forward to their return. Don't remember them, bring them back. Think positive. It's exactly the same reality. Grieving is a sign of life. When you grieve, it means that life is so appreciated that any loss of life is grievous. If you're not interested in life, then why kvetch about death? People are convinced that what this plague will bring is unspeakable. If you're convinced of that, have you already given up on life? When there's a possibility of life ending, we have to become more alive. Life is permanent. Death is temporary. Yes, it's temporary because it only serves a purpose, and once that purpose has been accomplished, it will stop. Those who have passed away will come back. When Mashiach comes, God will explain why death was necessary. Choose life. That's what you get. So what do you think of this whole?
Well, I was devastated, because when I heard him say that, I had that similar feeling and thought when he was saying it, and I was like, yeah, because they don't need it, which means it's happening, it's going to happen, and then another year and another year, and now, we're able to say it. You know what I mean? So it's not exactly. It didn't work out, right?
Yeah.
So.
So some quote unquote modern Orthodox guy who lives in Israel wrote a comment, which I forgot that he wrote it. I'll bet you they said the same thing during the Black Plague and cholera outbreak. And I just responded, all the while being blamed for causing it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to say?
Signs and miracles and, interpreting things is like, I don't have any motivation to do that anymore at all.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, I care. I want it, because, but it, I just want, enough with the signs and the interpretations. Don't let the thing happen already.
Yeah.
The thing, I don't want to, it's very difficult to get excited about anything.
Yeah.
Signs and wonders.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But again, they're just people. The rabbis,
Yeah. They don't know anything. Speaking of just people, man, so we wanted to speak about this whole thing of the men being convinced that there's such a thing as toxic masculinity.
Oh, yeah. But hold on, I'm not done ranting yet. I'll
Okay.
get to that in a minute. Not sure what I want to say, but yeah, I was very, very disappointed. It feels like some kind of lost opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because we talked about this before. He's like, the people were complaining about, being at home with their families, instead of seeing it as an opportunity, and the homeschooling of children, so that children can get their, can be together with the family without having to go to some kind of building and sit in traffic and all this kind of crap, right?
Yeah.
So, and people were not happy about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's funny that now you have, people talking about, sex with your kids instead of teaching them how to write and read.
Yeah.
Right? Now the priority for these, what's another word for creature? I don't want to say monster. I'm trying to say demon.
Heathens. No?
Not heathen. It's not good enough.
But hey, hold on. Let me get a thesaurus.
I want to say I like the way troglodyte.
No, troglodyte is like a. Hold on.
It doesn't mean what I need it to mean.
Hold on. Freak.
No, not good enough.
Hold on.
I need something special.
Mutant.
Mutants.
Hold on.
Not ominous enough.
Beast. Vermin. Vermin.
It's true, they are beasts and they are vermin.
Vampires. Goblins. Ghouls.
Goblin. There you go. Goblin. Goblin's good.
Ghouls.
Ghoul and goblin. Yeah, ghoul. Those are good. Those are both good. Okay, these goblins.
Yeah, evil spirit, ghoul. Yeah.
Right. These ugly, sick, demented goblins are teaching your kids, and prioritizing sexual identity, showing them porn, just twisted stuff. So if COVID wasn't enough to teach you guys that it's good for your kids to be at home and learn, maybe this will. What do you think? Maybe this will do it.
Yeah. Listen, dude. I always say, whoever's trying to destroy the world, or whoever's trying to destroy, like for example, the Jewish people. Like Arabs right now. What are they doing? They're pushing the Arab minister, the main, what's his name, Mansour Abbas, to leave the coalition so that the Israeli government can collapse. What these rocket scientists don't understand is that in its stead, what we're probably going to get is probably the most religious government that Israel's ever had. It's going to be literally Netanyahu, plus the two Haredi parties, plus the Kahanist party. That's going to be the four ruling parties in the coalition. Most likely, if they had an election today. That's what's projected, predicted, prognosticated. So, whatever these people are doing, whether it's the Arabs, Democrats, they're basically digging their own graves. Like, and they have to keep, as we know, they have to keep going. The Sitra, the Sitra has to keep going. There's no choice but to keep going forward. But it's just digging its own grave. Because the backlash is coming, and the backlash from normal people, even from people like my mother was saying yesterday, we were in the car, and we were talking about, the Hispanic vote, right? So we were saying, like, Hispanic vote, Democratic Party is losing the Hispanic vote. Why? Normally, Hispanics would vote Democrats. Why? Because they are used to, the places where they're from, they're used to the whole handout situation. Not everybody, but a lot of them, right? But then my mother goes, but now that you have this whole thing of the same party that's giving them handouts is also doing all this, ghouls and goblins operations, these Hispanic people are socially conservative people. They're Catholics. They're not going to stand for that stuff. You have to decide. Do we want... we're going to take these handouts along with these freaks, or we're going to work for our money.
Yeah.
There comes a point where it's like they have a limit. You know what I'm saying? Can't keep voting for the same ghouls and goblins all the time.
But you're talking about voting, and I don't want to hear anything about voting until voting matters.
Until voting happens, yeah.
I mean, when is, basically what do you got to do? You got to get rid of all the machines, create only paper ballots, get rid of all
the mail-in, all the mail-in ballots. Stuff. Yeah.
Okay, only if that happens should we even have a conversation about voting. Otherwise, who the hell cares? We're just going to keep cheating.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna. People are paranoid now. That they're gonna come up with something right before, something in the summer, or something like in September, like if something that would warrant them to have an excuse to allow people to vote from home. They're gonna come up with something. You know that.
I'm almost hoping that they are.
Yeah. So you can see how transparent it is.
Not just that. I'm just like I'm just hoping that that'll summon Gozer faster.
Yeah. It's funny.
Because when they're not fully engaged in their evil, right?
Yeah.
Like an express lane evil.
Yeah.
Right. Like when I see, look, either I want to see, Marshmallow Man walking down Main Street.
Yeah.
Or the evil, fully revealed and up to their... I mean, it's pretty bad now.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to see it completely out in the open, right?
But about 40% of people can't see it. They think it's good.
Right. Like, I want, they want to... Like, stuff what they're doing in China right now, like starving millions of people to death and beating their pets to death.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Dude, I hate them so much. I just cannot tell you. Like, I hate the Chinese government so much. Yeah. And everybody who supports them. I don't know, maybe there's 1 billion supporters. I hate them all. They should all evaporate.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who don't support them, they just can't say it in the open.
I hope that's the case. I hope that's the majority. I wrote something like this the other day. It's like the only reason why that's not happening here, because our government is just basically, paid whores, paid off by the Chinese. The government and the media, right? Everybody, in sports, at least most of the basketball, most of the NBA.
Yeah.
the only reason why that's not happening here, why they're not just rounding up their ideological enemies, which would be more than half the country, and starving them to death, and beating their pets to death, is because we have guns.
Yep.
We have so many guns, and we have lots of bullets. So I want anybody listening to this, get more guns and more bullets.
Yep.
Buy a lot. Okay? I know a lot of you guys, listening to this, that you agree with the idea, but you're not going to go do it because you live somewhere in New York or something like that. Dude, just go get it anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was just mentioning to someone, I think the other, say Frank feels very uncomfortable in New York because he can't carry a weapon in New York. Or up north, anywhere.
Imagine, because, the subway shooter, right?
Mm-hmm.
He shot 5 people, tried to set off some explosives.
Allegedly,
right? That's out of the that's out of the headlines.
Yeah.
Quick. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You understand? Like that could be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like just, I guess. Listen, if you're meant to go, then you're gonna go because that's God doing it, right? I get that, but it would just break my heart that I can't take a couple of them with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. So speaking of guns, man, let's get into this masculinity thing.
Yeah, guns. Guns are good, okay?
Guns are good. Guns are good. Don't be good. Get guns. Don't call your children.
Thanks.
Don't listen to Mr. Mackey. Get guns.
What was that?
What is it?
What was that? There's like this movie came out like in the 2000s, Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah.
Remember, did you ever see it?
I saw it. I just remember like every moment when I saw the movie.
I'm trying to remember the name of the grandfather.
Alan Arkin.
Yes.
He's awesome. He's amazing.
Yeah, that guy. I like him. His voice is very calming to me.
It's very calming, and he played. He played in he's still alive. Oh my god! We shouldn't. Oh my god.
Don't even. I shouldn't have even brought him up.
Seriously. He played in Catch-22, the movie version.
Yeah.
Captain Yossarian, the main character.
Yeah.
He was nominated for some couple of awards for that.
Remember, he was the super nice police captain, and So I Married an Axe Murderer.
He was in the movie, really? Oh yeah, that's
he was in a movie.
Interesting.
Because remember in the movie, his friend is a cop, right?
Mm-hmm.
But his friend, he wants to have like a TV cop fantasy thing, but his captain's too nice, right? And then his captain came and said, "Listen, I know you're doing overall you're doing a great job and everything, but you made a mistake here on the thing, and then listen, don't worry about it, just keep it in mind." And he's like, "Captain, that's not what I signed up for. You're supposed to grab me, slam me up against the wall, and say, I'm gonna demote your ass back to the mailroom," something like that. Just he likes cop movies, and he's like, and then he tries to do it later on in the movie. You don't remember that? That was like a huge part of the movie.
No. I need to see the movie in its entirety again. But dude, Alan Arkin was nominated twice for an Oscar in the '60s. For 2 roles in the '60s. And he won the Golden Globe. There was a movie called The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming. You know this movie? 1966. There's 2 movies. And The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, 1968. He was nominated for an Oscar for that. And then he was nominated, Catch-22, for like another award. What else? A few awards. He's like foreign. So I
brought him up because Little Miss Sunshine. In that movie, he was telling his grandson, right? He goes, remember, have sex with a lot of women, not just one woman, a lot of women. He said that to him, right? He goes, that's the most important advice he could think of, to give him before he would have his. He died of a heroin overdose.
Yeah.
In the movie, his character he decides to become a heroin addict late in life.
Yeah.
Because he feels like he didn't have enough out of life, so that's what he told his grandson.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna tweak that a little bit. I'm gonna say, guns, lots of them, not just one, many. Remember.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
All right. So that's a good way to start with toxic masculinity. So I just want to tell guys that there's nothing wrong with the way that you feel about stuff. There's nothing wrong with your instincts. When women make you feel, something doesn't sit right, something they say, something that they do, a certain attitude that they have, just doesn't sit right. There's nothing wrong with the way that you're feeling. We're being brainwashed. We're being trained, conditioned, like little Pavlovian dogs, right? To self-check or to self-police. Whenever we have a feeling like that, that's just, Cro-Magnon, early, got to get rid of that, like toxic masculinity and blah, blah, blah. No, those are programmed inside of you for a reason. Now, the question is, how to act on those feelings. Obviously, never hit anybody, okay? Yeah. I mean, never hit the woman, okay? And, the only way to really hit the woman is to not to physically hit her, but to protect yourself legally, okay? And to not be taken in by by their conditioning, by their programming. Like, for instance, give you an example. We're getting very vague here. If you have a problem that let's say, this is not something I'm dealing with, because right away the analysts are going to start analyzing me, okay? This is something that I've seen other people deal with, and I've seen how they were, let's say, brainwashed into thinking that they're not, their feelings and thoughts are not valid. Okay, so if you have a problem with your wife or girlfriend working with a guy, right? That's valid. Mm-hmm. That's not something you got to just get over. Okay? Yeah. And if your girl cares about you, she doesn't have to understand it, but she has to respect it. Okay? I think that a lot of people, they have to be more ready to stick to their guns in a situation at the risk of a relationship seemingly, unraveling. You understand what I'm saying? Like, people, they bite their tongue. A lot of guys, they tolerate crap. And I'm sure a lot of women tolerate crap from their guys because they don't want the relationship to fall apart. Yeah. Right? But if you have, issues like that, if you have, strong feelings that are marginalized, okay, the relationship is already torn apart. That's because one person is completely neglecting the existence of the other person. Yeah. Right? Your feelings are not politically popular right now, therefore they don't exist, and therefore I don't have to acknowledge them. Yeah. You know what that is? That's saying you are not politically popular right now, and I don't have to worry about that part. If you have a problem with it, then, so that's what I'm saying. You got to let that kind of stuff take its course, because your feelings are not wrong. They're not wrong. Jealousy is not wrong. Yeah. Okay? Beating and killing in response to it is wrong. That's obviously wrong. Yeah. Like you see in some of the Islamic communities, all this is like honor killings and all these kind of things. Honor killings. Yeah. I mean, the stuff that happens, that's the stuff that's like condoned in Islam, killing, maiming, for slights, for emotional slights. I mean, that's insane. Obviously, nobody's talking about that, okay? So, it shouldn't even need to be said that beating and killing or damaging property is out of the question. Of course it is. That's retarded. Yeah. If you thought that could be a result of this, then you're not having it. You don't belong in this discussion. Yeah. Okay, but for people who understand that beating and killing is as a response to some kind of emotional pain is out of the question, then you don't have to don't buy into somebody telling you that the way that you're feeling is some kind of like artifact of a distant, the distant past, that it's no longer serving you.
Yeah.
Jealousy, all your male impulses are absolutely fundamental, and hold on to them and treasure them very, very much.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay?
Can I read to
that's
you?
Really, I think, yeah.
No, sorry, you were going to say.
No, go ahead.
No, I want to read to you just the origin of the term. I was wondering where the term came from. Toxic masculinity.
Toxic. So, you know what? Before you continue,
yeah.
I just want to. This is what toxic masculinity, this idea, has brought to civilization. I'm just going to give you one example, okay? Mm-hmm. England is one of the worst countries in the world, where the men have bought in to this idea that the male impulse is toxic. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it's really just white men. It's focused on white men. I mean, the political powers, these toolies, these ghouls that are running society, right? They're kind of like using these devices, like, these political like devices, like toxic masculinity, right? They're using that like in a compartmentalized way. They're using it on white men, but the people they call Asians, they have this term for Islamic Pakistanis. They just say Asian. They can't even say that these are Islamic Pakistanis that are raping gangs of Islamic Pakistanis. Not all Islamic Pakistanis, but there are gangs. It's commonplace. Common. And I'm saying that honestly. Commonplace for gangs of, they're called grooming gangs.
Yeah.
All over England, in multiple cities in England, they've been operating completely with the blessing of the police for decades, possibly. Yeah. Okay? So Tommy Robinson, he posted something. Wait, can I even say that name without I probably already said 50,000 things that are getting us thrown off.
It could be like a random soccer player, Tommy Robinson. You don't know.
Yeah. Well, so he he's releasing this this documentary on May 7th, by the way. Mm-hmm. I think it's called The Rape of England. Okay? So a lot of these grooming gangs have been threatening him. The police have not protected him
The Rape
at
of,
all.
The Rape of Britain. Yeah, it's a TV series.
Yeah. They're working together. Obviously, the police are doing this with they're operating with the blessing of the police, because the police are a political organization now. They don't do their job. Mm-hmm. Okay, England is effed.
Yeah,
England is just effed. It's been effed for a long time. I don't know. I don't see a way out for England unless some sort of like supernatural. That's why I'm saying, like, there's so many places that are so deeply effed that really, and it's not because the men are physically incapable. Their minds and spirits have been conquered, destroyed. Yeah. Okay.
By stupid professors.
Yeah. So basically, you have this guy, one of the rapists. Yeah. This guy named Maj Khan, aka Majid. Yeah. Right. He was on the phone. Tommy Robinson recorded the phone call. Mm-hmm. He's saying, "I'm going to drug your kids and I'm going to rape them." All right. He kept saying that over and over to Tommy Robinson on the phone. He goes, I hope that you recording this and you post it. Mm-hmm. So this is the kind of stuff that is going on. So this whole idea of toxic masculinity, right? Mm-hmm. They don't. It goes to show you that the people spouting this, they're not against toxic masculinity. They love it. Yeah. Okay. They just want it. They want to weaponize it. Yeah. If they can't control it, they're not. Then they don't like it. Meaning, like, they only. Yeah. In other words, they only like what they can control. They can use. They're now using the real toxic masculinity from Muslims. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. They're using that, right? But they don't like the masculinity
of white men.
Of the Western, the Western-minded man.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's more dangerous to them ideologically.
Yep.
I think because the way Muslim masculinity is asserting itself, right? They're like, it's so cartoonishly evil at this point that we're not really concerned that it's going to last,
Yeah.
right? So when we destroy society, right, and we rebuild it, obviously we're going to get rid of these Muslims.
Yeah, of course.
They were just a tool.
What they don't realize is the Muslims are going to get rid of them first.
I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't matter. They're both of these parties are evil. It's just definitely whoever's pulling the strings.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Schwab, right? Klaus Schwab. People like that.
Klaus Schwab.
They're obviously smarter.
Yeah.
Or they think. Or it seems to me at this point that they are. Okay. I don't know what they think they're going to do with the Muslims. I think they're just going to release a plague or something like that.
Yeah.
Or they're going to pay some of these ayatollahs just to set off accidentally a couple of nuclear bombs in those areas.
Again, it's like what you said. It seems like all these wars and all this stuff that's going on, or the fact that they're perpetuating, for example, conflict in the Middle East. It's just like bloodletting rituals for these people.
Yeah. I think
it's just sacrifice. It's just sacrifices.
Yeah. I think they have people positioned, all over the Islamic world, right? That when it comes time to culling, to getting rid of these, of the barbarians, right? They've served their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They're just gonna release a plague, or they're gonna set off a couple of dirty bombs, all by accident, that kind of thing. Blame Israel.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that they're overly concerned about the Muslims being a big threat to them. Right now, they're just a useful tool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but that's that just goes to show you this is what this toxic masculinity crap has done to a country like England.
Yeah.
So once great nation. I'm not saying I certainly don't agree with them. I certainly don't think that they were friendly to Jews. Yeah. Well, some of them were. Some of them I'm not. It wasn't like a completely black and white thing. There were supporters.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in terms of greatness, I'm saying that they what did they say? The sun never set on the English Empire. It's true.
Yeah.
They were quite successful in their in being powerful.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, everybody who complains about colonialization, you're not complaining about like Chinese colonialization, right?
Yeah.
You're not complaining about Russians, right? Or
maybe now you are. Well, it's all like Reconquista,
Right.
They want them to reconquer.
Right. So so everybody's so full of shit. It's crazy. But
so let me read to you real quick the sources of this term. He says, this is Wikipedia, but still it talks about the history of it.
Of toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. The term actually originated in the mytho-poetic men's movement, which is actually kind of a pro movement. I guess you can call it. It's a new age. It's a Jungian kind of archetype. Speaking of art, young.
Yeah.
Movement in the 80s and 90s. See, it says it urged men to. One second. Yeah, most well-known text of the movement was Iron John, a book about men, by the poet Robert Bly, who argued that male energy had been diluted through modern social institutions, such as the feminist movement, industrialization, separation of fathers from the family, life through working outside the home. Bly urged men to recover a pre-industrial conception of masculinity through spiritual camaraderie with other men in male-only gatherings. Like in our case, we have like Fabrengens, The purpose of these activities was to foster greater understanding of the forces influencing the roles of men in modern society and how these changes affect behavior, self-awareness, and identity. So this is like a healthy thing, It goes into like Jungian archetypes, all these things. So it goes on. It says some
nice and vague.
Yeah, whatever. No, there's a whole thing about it. I just took too long to read it. It says, according to sociologist Michael Messner, mytho-poets believe that the rise of the urban industrial society has trapped men into straitjackets of rationality, thus blunting the powerful emotional communion and collective spiritual transcendence that they believe men in tribal societies typically enjoyed. So these guys are like against toxic, masculinity. The movement seeks to restore the deep masculine to men who have lost it in their more modern lifestyles. Okay, but then they talk about, so he says, some authors associated associated with the mythopoetic men's movement have referred to the social pressures placed upon men to be violent, competitive, independent, and unfeeling as a toxic form of masculinity. So they're saying like we're pressured to be that. In contrast to a real or deep masculinity that they say men have lost touch with within modern society. The academic Shepard Bliss proposed a return to agrarianism as an alternative to the potentially toxic masculinity of the war. So these guys are talking about that we're pressured to be violent, I guess, because we lost touch with like...
No, but the thing is, it sounds bad, right?
Yeah.
Oh, pressured to be violent.
Yeah.
But but when you ask them for an example, right?
Yeah.
Few people ask them for an example. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Give me an example
So
of
let me
pressure
just...
to be violent. When someone pushes you, by defending yourself, that's your pressure to be violent.
Yeah.
That's what they mean.
Yeah. No, see,
Okay?
So listen to this.
Someone grabs your girlfriend's ass.
Yeah.
You feel pressured that you have to protect her and stand up for her.
Yeah.
That's bad, according to them.
No, so listen to this. He says, sociologist Michael Kimmel writes that Bliss's notion of toxic masculinity can be seen as a part of the mythopoetic movement's response to male feelings of powerlessness at a time when the feminist movement was challenging traditional male authority. Thus, Shepard Bliss, for example, rails against what he calls toxic masculinity, which he believes is responsible for most of the evil in the world, and proclaims the unheralded goodness of the men who fight the fires and till the soil and nurture their families. So he says, academic usage. In the social sciences, toxic masculinity, this is where we get this, refers to traditional cultural masculine norms that can be harmful to men, women, and society overall. This concept of toxic masculinity does not condemn men or male attributes, but rather emphasizes the harmful effects of conformity to certain traditional masculine ideal behaviors such as dominance, self-reliance, and competition. Toxic masculinity is thus defined by adherence to traditional male gender roles that consequently stigmatize and limit the emotions boys and men may comfortably express, while elevating other emotions such as anger. It is marked by economic, political, and social expectations that men seek and achieve dominance. In a gender studies context, Raewyn Connell, some woman in Australia, a sociologist, refers to toxic practices that may arise out of what she terms hegemonic masculinity rather than essential traits. Connell argues that such practices, such as physical violence, may serve to reinforce men's dominance over women in Western societies. She stresses that such practices are a salient feature of hegemonic masculinity, although not always the defining features. They should focus on Islam at this point. Terry Kuppers...
No, they're never going to do that.
I know,
that's
listen.
The ultimate,
yeah.
That's the ultimate, proof that they're garbage, that they're liars.
Terry Kuppers describes toxic masculinity as involving the need to aggressively compete and dominate others, and as the constellation of socially regressive male traits that serve to foster domination, devaluation of women, homophobia, and wanton violence. According to Kuppers, toxic masculinity includes the aspects of hegemonic masculinity that are socially destructive, such as misogyny, homophobia, greed, and violent domination. He contrasts these traits with more positive traits such as pride in one's ability to win in sports, to maintain solidarity with a friend, to succeed at work, and to provide for one's family. Feminist author John Stolten, oh my god, John Stolten, why is a man a feminist author? Can somebody explain to me? Has argued that all traditional notions of masculinity are toxic and reinforce the oppression of women. He goes on. According to Kuppers, toxic masculine norms are a feature of life for men in American prisons, where they are reflected in the behavior of both staff and inmates. The qualities of extreme self-reliance, domination of other men through violence, and avoiding the appearance of either femininity or weakness comprise an unspoken code among prisoners. Suppressing vulnerable emotions is often adopted to successfully cope with harsh conditions of prison life, defined by punishment, social isolation, and aggression. These factors likely play a role in suicide among male prisoners. Toxic masculinity can also...
Can I stop you?
Yeah.
I can't. First of all, I need a break from listening to this for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay? But, these writers, they sound like they're trying to make themselves, they assume the identity of somebody writing from like the 34th century, where all of the issues that face humans today, difficulty in survival, right? Death, having to figure out how to make a living, right? Keeping your loved ones safe, right?
Yeah.
It's as if all of those things had been already solved, right?
Yeah.
And and anything that we have to do in order to maintain that and to make that possible is unnecessary. That's what they're talking.
Yeah.
Everything he's saying, like for some reason he gave the example of the prison.
Yeah.
But what about just regular life?
Yeah.
Why
go extreme? Why go extreme? Yeah. Dude, can I read to you about this idiot who's this John Stoltenberg, this male feminist?
In a moment.
But it's important because you have to understand.
No, I definitely think it's important, but I just need you gotta have mercy on me.
Yeah.
I'm not well today, and I can't. It's difficult for me to hear about these people when I'm feeling okay.
I mean, this you gotta hear about because you'll understand what's going on now. Oh my God, this is.
No, I just wanted to just another second. I want to say that like regular life is very hard. The women, right? Most of the women have not transcended their desire to want an alpha man.
Yeah.
That's what they go for.
Of course they haven't.
Right? Women, they give a lot of care to their appearance, right? They want to emphasize their curvaceousness. They want to I'm not speaking about Jewish women. I'm not speaking about religious Jewish women. Most of the women in the world. They want to emphasize their attractive femaleness, right? So, cleavage, hip hugging stuff. They go through a lot. Like I'm here in Miami, you know what I mean? It's like it's big everywhere, but in Miami it's really big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
To be like that, right?
Yeah.
And then so that's what we look for. That's what we automatically, naturally respond to. But what do the women respond to? They respond to they want to see a winner.
Yeah.
We know that. We can sense that. We know what we get the drift. We see what's happening, right?
Yeah.
You could say one thing with your mouth.
Yeah.
Your eyes, right, are scanning. We can see where you're looking when you're not, when you're not having one of your political tirades. You're looking at the alpha guy.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's what we want to be. We don't want to be some kind of politically idealized version of what you say you want. We want to be what you really want.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the world that we live in. And this guy's talking like that's not an issue.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be nice to him.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm trying to be like, let's just entertain for a moment that they have a point, which they don't. Okay? But even the premise itself is unrealistic.
Yeah.
Because you're not pointing this at all men.
Yeah.
You're only pointing this at white men. You wouldn't dream of pointing this at Russians or Arabs or anything like that.
Yeah. Of course not. Or right? Ukrainians running around yelling "pidaras" every 2 seconds.
Yeah. You guys are full of shit. Okay. Either you think that here's the best case scenario. Okay. Here's the best. I'm serious about this.
Mm-hmm.
They think they're trying to stuff these ideas into the heads of white men because they're hoping, because they think they really believe these ideas and they think that this is how humans have to progress, right? And they're not focusing on Arabs and Russians or Africans because they plan on killing them off anyway.
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario for who we're dealing with.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, read.
So this John Stoltenberg clown show, radical feminist activist, author, and magazine editor. He is the former managing editor of AARP, the magazine, a bi-monthly publication of American-based advocacy group AARP. You know AARP, American Association of Retired Peoples.
Yeah, sure.
Persons. A position he held from 2004 to 2012.
I think Angelina Jolie just became a member.
I don't think so. Listen to this. He has written a series of books and articles criticizing traditional concept of manhood or maleness, such as Refusing to be a Man, Essays on Sex and Justice, Why I Stopped Trying to Be a Real Man, and The End of Manhood, a book for men of conscience. Stoltenberg created a pose workshop, which entailed men adopting the poses that women strike in pornographic shots, intended partly for men to attending Christian retreats. Basically, he wants to he's against porn, feminism that's against porn. So I guess that's like that's his way of fighting porn. Stoltenberg is a founder of the group Men Can Stop Rape and developed the group's My Strength campaign, which aims to educate young men on sexual...
By the way, you know who makes porn happen?
Jewish guys.
No.
Kidding.
Thanks, Farrakhan. Thank you. I was waiting. What's going to be the first Farrakhan today? There it is. Dude, the majority of porn is not produced by Jews.
It's Germans.
By the way.
Yeah.
It's Europeans and Asians. Asians are okay. Jews, they unfortunately are involved in it, but
So listen to this manipulation that this guy wrote.
Hold on. I had a point before you Farrakhan.
Sorry.
My point is that women are responsible for porn, not men.
That's true.
All they got to do is stop showing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one's forcing them to do this.
Yeah. They're not.
All right, continue.
Stoltenberg has been credited with the quote, pornography tells lies about women, but pornography tells the truth about men. And has described how, as a feminist male, he has had to reevaluate and even discontinue relationship with some of his male friends.
I'm sure that they were very relieved by that.
What a pidaras.
Nobody wants to hang out with this fag.
Yeah, I'm looking at his picture. It's literally how I imagine him to be. You know, sometimes hear about people and you can imagine them in your mind.
You mean like Klaus Schwab wearing lingerie with wings on the?
But that's not him, obviously.
When he was naked
it's
on
not
the
him.
beach.
It's not him.
I contest. I think it is.
It's not him.
Why not? Why isn't it him? Why not? He looks like somebody would do it.
He probably would.
Why not
but that guy is not him.
Okay.
It's just a tall, bald guy walking around the beach with whatever.
But that's what this guy looks like, right?
No, this guy looks like kind of. He still has his hair and it's gray.
He looks like that guy who wants to be a swimmer.
He looks like a poor man's Andy Warhol. This guy.
Ooh.
This Stoltenberg
That's not
guy.
very masculine.
It's not good. See, if you go to his Twitter, equality, integrity, creativity, author, editor, theater buff, trans inclusive radical feminist, communications consultant, he, him, his, 1,200 followers.
I want to interrupt you again, ladies. If you were really attracted to guys who are sensitive and really listen to all of your problems and who weren't really so alpha, but that's what all of us would be clamoring to be what you want.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
This guy is literally, dude. Every I'm looking at a video of him. He looks like a caricature of every. You see guys these fictional characters in movies wearing a turtleneck and a beard and kind of longer hair. That professor guy who's spouting off complete nonsense. Just nonsense.
Like Donald Sutherland in Animal House?
Something like that, yeah. See, somebody wrote in the comments, the original soy boy. So creepy. Woke and smunk since the 70s.
By the way, even me, I'm a person who doesn't eat animal products.
Yeah.
I'm very much against soy for men.
Yeah.
No good.
Yeah.
All right. Continue.
So no, that's it. That's the guy. That is the guy. So I don't know, man. Where do we go from here? What do we do about this?
I don't know, but I know that this has something to do with it. Tommy Robinson wrote something. It said, never celebrate being given back a right that they took from you. It wasn't theirs to take. Never forget or forgive what they did. I agree.
Yeah. Well,
he's talking about the mask mandate.
Yeah, they took. Dude, you know what's it's insane to me. They took away the mask mandate for transportation for planes. I know what these heathens did. They found they've been running articles about the judge in Florida. She's 30-something years old. That she's not qualified. That she's this. She was Clarence Thomas's mentee. Dude,
she was his what?
Like he was her mentor. Clarence Thomas was her mentor.
Okay.
Judge.
Okay, mentee. Okay.
Mentee.
Okay.
Dude, what is wrong? Like they want to wear masks. They want to. They enjoy it. Dude, I'll have a dog judge rule against masks. A dog, an animal, to rule against masks. Whoever will rule against masks, I will be for it. I don't care if they're qualified, not qualified. Like, what's wrong with these people? I don't understand. And now they're writing, oh, we're about to get the biggest MAGA, something like MAGA infused or MAGA Daily Beast. It's a Daily Beast. It's a proper name for this. Here, for this magazine. Here, federal judge struck. Yeah, here you go. Biden travel mandate. One second. Yeah, here you go. Trump's worst judge made a travel a MAGA nightmare. Dude, this looks like the you know, like the, what's that, the magazine where they have like videos of celebrities, you know, like Man on the Street. And it's not even like, these people aren't journalists. Yeah, look at it. Getting on an airplane or train has been scary and miserable for 2 years. Yeah, you know why it's scary and miserable? Because they made it scary and miserable. Things are about to get even worse. I don't understand.
Well,
I don't understand where you get that thing, this kind of thinking. It doesn't.
Listen, if I was really, this goes to show you that they're not really concerned about this, because if I was in their position, right? Let's say it was a real concern, right? Yeah. So I would be like, all right, let all these idiots fly, right? They'll all make each other sick and die, and then the world will open up, and we'll have plenty of seats on the plane to stretch my legs. Some kind of Bill Burr routine. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, can I play something for you? I want to see if you guys can get this. Yeah. That whole thing, that rant about Tommy Robinson. Perhaps some of the folks at home feel I'm being a little harsh. I just wanted to. Yeah. I want you to hear this, so it doesn't come from me. Tell me.
I can barely hear it's like very muffled.
I mean, it's muffled. It's muffled anyway. Okay. But I just want to. You can hear it.
If you could turn it down, maybe a little bit. I can hear it. Just turn it.
Okay. Hold on.
What the hell?
So the guy said, "I'm gonna drug and rape your kids."
Oh,
yeah. I guess you guys are gonna have to look at it yourself. It doesn't come through. Yeah. Very, very kind of strange. Yeah. Kind of some sort of London accent, which is not very.
Well, it's more like Jamaican a little bit.
No, it's like the Pakistanis have their own accent.
Yeah. So. Oh goodness gracious.
Well, the article is on the Gateway Pundit, right? And then you can scroll down. It's from yesterday.
Yeah.
So.
It's interesting to me though. But what I notice is that all this talk began of this whole toxic masculinity thing. All this talk began. It's almost like Trump, his very existence, flushed all these people out, meaning that it brought them to the spotlight. Because I never heard about any of this stuff before Trump ran for president. I never heard about like all these Two-Spirit and this and that, all these guys. It's almost like the guy is the chemotherapy for this stuff. Like you use like a certain drug to bring out like a disease to bring it to the surface, or he's like, like eucalyptus that they use to drain the swamps. Literally, that's what we call draining the swamp. The guy's like eucalyptus, so he's like, he brings everything to the surface. Like I never heard about any. Dude, during Obama, I didn't know about any of this. I'm like, where is this from? Like these people, and I would talk to people like, let's say my sister's age, and they would use these like terms and acronyms, and I'm like, are you speaking English? I don't understand what you're saying. Where is this from? What is this? Was I asleep? Was I in a coma for like 4 years? Dude, you want to talk about, you said when you got back from Israel, and you heard, certain music and all, this is like, 2001. Dude, when I got back from Israel...
2000, yeah.
Yeah, so when I got back from Israel in 2013, all of a sudden, and it's not like I didn't have access to the internet in Israel, but all of a sudden there was all this, like, I don't know, like, new terminology and, like, new, these, like, I don't know, I'm like, what planet am I on? Just in America. In Israel, it's not, even with the lefties in Israel, it's not, you don't hear this stuff. Maybe I don't hang out with enough lefties, but I just wasn't
you know what it's like?
privy
you know
to
what
it.
It's like?
It doesn't, we don't have that disease.
Imagine like Comic-Con, right?
Yeah.
Or the Star Trek Carnival, not Carnival, conference.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Convention. Star Trek convention.
Yeah.
Okay? So imagine, you have, let's say, 2,000 people, right? All of them are, they all know the language. They know how to speak Vulcan, and they know how to speak Klingon and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine all of them, they come together and they make a diabolical plan to take positions of power and influence in our society, right? I'm going to run for Congress, and this guy's going to become a professor at NYU, and this guy is going to get on the board of this and on the board of that, right?
Yeah.
So all of them are essentially from the same convention. Okay? And then all of a sudden you're like, why is everybody talking Klingon?
Yeah.
That's literally the same scenario.
Yeah.
What actually happened is exactly what I just described, except they weren't speaking Klingon. They were speaking whatever this is.
Yeah.
They were speaking Tool.
Dude, I don't know. It's just like I didn't even know what to, how to respond. I didn't even know how to even engage in conversation. I was just kind of like.
Can I give you some pointers? This usually gets a laugh or two.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, guys, let's talk about words.
Yeah.
Words are these things that we use to communicate with each other that we've all agreed upon their meaning.
Yeah.
Right? Not Hebrew, but the rest of the languages, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't understand any of the words that you're saying, and most people don't. Therefore, you're speaking gibberish.
Yeah.
It's important for you to know that.
Yeah.
And everybody who, if you feel that anybody who doesn't understand what you're saying is not important, or they're not part of your club, then you're similar to those children who, like children, they create like these little clubs where they have like a secret language.
Imaginary friend. Imaginary this,
imaginary friends, right. So that's who we've allowed. Dude, we're so complacent. The adults, right? Whoever the adults are relatively in our society, have become so complacent.
Well, you know why they're complacent? You know why they're complacent?
We weren't paying attention what happened.
I'll tell you why they're complacent. Well, not only complacent, they are worshipping of their children, because I know personally people, Russian Jews, who sent their kids to Ivy League schools, and so they got it into their heads that, my kid is in Ivy League school, and Ivy League school is like the bastion of like everything that's...
You turn your kid into a muppet, brainless muppet.
Well, by them, they think it's like the bastion of the forefront and the tip of the spear of everything that's kind of novelty and intellectualism and, this ivory tower bastion of whatever, progress. And so whatever their kid says, they're literally worshiping their kids. Whatever their kid says, is gospel. I know Russian Jews like that. These are people who lived through the KGB. These are people who lived through brainwashing of their own, attempted brainwashing of their own. Some of them were even, refuseniks or whatever it is. And their kids are just like, they come back after like, let's say a year or two in whatever university and start spouting this bullshit. And some of the parents are actually в ужасе, as we say in Russian, they are in horror.
I mean, what have I done?
Why did I let this happen? But other parents are like, this is what it is, or whatever. They're like, they think it's a passing fad, and little do they realize the kid gets out of college, they go to work, into the workforce, and this stuff is prevalent in corporations now. That's how corporations are run. They're run according to the woke strategy. And I don't know, man. It's just
no. I mean, all that really shows us is that how diabolical, this tool society is. They know how to plan. They know how to bide their time. They really do. You got to You got to give it to them on their ability to. But you know why they're doing this? You know why they're so good at this?
What?
What is it? What's that expression? Necessity breeds.
Yeah, mother of invention.
Is a mother of invention, right? We talked about this a lot because Rabbi Kessler was teaching us the Sitra Achra. It has to. It can only survive if it gets us to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It literally cannot live. It can't just leave us alone, right? Mm-hmm. You wonder, like, why are we not planning their demise as feverishly as they are trying to plan it? You know what I mean? Why? Yeah. Because our survival doesn't depend on
other people dying. Yeah.
To do something bad, right?
Yeah.
So they have to.
Yeah.
That's why they're so good at this. That's why they're feverishly, like obsessively doing this because they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And that's why, if only more people knew that there's an entity out there, right, that it cannot rest. It cannot. It will die if it rests. Yeah. It's always planning until it's dead, right? Until Mashiach comes, you have to know that it's always. If it's not executing its plan, it's regrouping and planning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they're doing now. They know they're going to get, like, for example, like, their ass is kicked. Somebody said this as like a perfect thing, actually. This guy on Twitter, he said, he goes, because we were talking about, how the Democrats are going to get their asses handed to them in the congressional elections. And, Michael Malice, he asked the question, what non-ironic, non-sarcastic advice would you give Joe Biden to improve his polling numbers? So this guy responded, do what Clinton did in 1994. What was he referring to? And I wrote, you mean Gingrich. Clinton basically, what he did was, because he got his ass kicked, so Gingrich made a contract for America, which was a Republican plan for the economy and all these things. And so Clinton moved to the center, and he worked across the aisle, supposedly, allegedly, with Gingrich. And so this guy responds to me, yeah, that's essentially what I meant. After Gingrich beat the piss out of him in the midterms, he smartly moderated, Clinton did, to the center and went along with some of Gingrich's ideas. And then I just wrote, like, unfortunately, as much as Biden and whatever's left of his brain would like to do that, the wokes pulling the strings will not allow it. And then this guy writes, I have a theory on this. They push as far to the left as possible when in power, knowing they will lose elections, but it is worth it for them because they know the pendulum never sways all the way back to the right, so they always gain ground in the aggregate. It's like they moved the Overton window so far to the left that anybody who's like center seems right wing. Or like when even when the right wingers win, let's say like the Republicans are going to win, right? But they can't win on they can't walk around with a platform of like we're against gays. They're not going to say that. It's just whatever ground they made for this trans and gay, that stays. The Republicans are not going to win on that platform. They may win on we're against grooming.
He's already doing that. Biden concedes defeat after Trump judge overturns his mask mandate. Says it's up to America.
Yeah, because they know they've already moved the Overton window of the country of the zeitgeist so far. Even if the Republicans win, mentalities are So he says, this guy writes, that has been the game plan since Woodrow Wilson. Every single Democrat president did it. Always do some irreversible changes to centralize power to D.C. And when you are about to lose a critical election, cheat or make the GOP split. You got like Romney on one side and then you got like Taylor Greene on the other side. Whatever it is, divide and conquer. It's they don't care. They don't care. Yeah, like you said, if they're in power, they're just doing that. When they're not in power, they're just regrouping to, What next caca are we going to do?
Yeah, so...
That's essentially what the strategy is.
What you said that about, the damage that they do, right? In terms of they know that it's never going to swing all the way to the right.
Yeah.
The only reason why that's the case is because of entertainment.
Yeah. You're talking about it because of Hollywood. Yeah.
Well, because of Hollywood and because of the news. Right, so the supposed news, right? So that's who comes into power in the meantime. When you have the supposed Republicans take office, that's when the entertainment and the influencing side of the Democrats or the Sitra Achra kicks in. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's when you get all these guys but I'm hoping that they're so despised at this point that that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But really, all this talk is Plan B talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is all like non-Mashiach stuff.
Yeah.
This is all like, we're talking like people who expect Mashiach not to come, or we're ready to be, or, we're basically expecting to be disappointed. Which is...
we're talking like people, I was talking to my mother today, or not today, a couple of days ago, we were sitting at the pool, and she goes to me, she's talking about, the cyclical nature of the stock market and cyclical nature of economy. And she goes, I was hoping that at least, we're going to elect a Republican Congress, and at least, my 401k won't erode. And I go, even if from Derech HaTeva's point of view, as a person who used to be in the markets, or still kind of is, the hope strategy is not an investment strategy. It's not. Or hoping that Trump will come back in, whatever, 4 years or 3 years or 2 years. None of that's a strategy. Even if you're like going just by Derech HaTeva. And it's just like, even so, you have to figure out a way how to do things. Like, even if you don't consider Mashiach, right? None of these people are Mashiach. Kevin McCarthy's not Mashiach. Trump is not Mashiach.
Kevin McCarthy, dude, is part of the Sitra Achra.
Yeah. Yeah, they wrote this article.
Remember we were talking about that guy Madison Cawthorn?
Yes. The guy with the wheelchair, I think. Hawthorne. Yeah. He looks like he was like, if he was a Nazi, he'd be in Hitler Youth.
You know what's funny? Who was that guy? That English comedian who was like he was a limousine liberal until recently, so he realized that.
You're talking about? Oh, I'm thinking of David Mamet, the playwright. English comedian.
So, this guy, he's like long hair. He's scruffy.
Oh yeah, Scottish guy.
No. Yeah, this is a younger guy.
Oh.
What the hell's his name?
Scruffy hair.
He's like, he's like.
Not Eddie Izzard. The freak.
No, I'm talking about a guy who's like 50.
Ricky Gervais. Oh, Ricky Gervais. Yeah.
Not Ricky Gervais, but you're getting in the ballpark. Tall, skinny, scruffy guy with long hair.
I'm just gonna go through every single British comedian. I don't know.
Yeah. Go through
long hair. Jimmy Carr, John Cleese.
No, you're going old school.
Eric Idle. Eric Idle, the guy from. Oh, you're talking about younger.
Contemporary, a skinny guy. Eric Idle.
Oh my god, dude! I wouldn't use Stephen Merchant. I mean, he doesn't have long hair.
Who's that? Okay, remember that movie Get Him to the Greek with Jonah?
Oh, this idiot! The guy looks like Russell Brand. The guy looks like Jesus. You should have just said the guy looks like Jesus.
Right.
Russell Brand, yeah.
But he
became like libertarian.
He was talking about Madison Cawthorn. Let me see if I can pull this up.
Here, I'll pull it up. Here, Russell Brand, Madison Cawthorn.
You should hear this because Kevin McCarthy is not to be trusted.
Here, you were right. Is it called You Were Right? That's the video, 10 days ago?
I think yes.
Hold on.
Look, it's me, Russell.
Hold on. April 9th.
Actually,
the sex orgy, the drug parties thing? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the one.
All over Washington, and is therefore facing a huge backlash. But why should we find it difficult to believe that there's saucy behaviour in Washington when we know what actually does go on? Hello there, you 5.4 million awakening wonders. We continue to convey to you as best we can the truth as we individually and collectively awaken. Today we're going to be discussing a very salacious, saucy story about drugs and sex and politics. The last bit made me nearly feel sick. But what interests me mostly is that I suppose the implication is that there's a moral corruption at play. Because really, sex between consenting people, whose business is it? But, the people involved. We're going to get into that story in just a minute. First, I want to tell you that I'm on tour all over the UK. There's a few tickets left. click on the link in the description and see what these saucy buggers in Washington are doing with their time. Do we believe them or not? Does it matter? Do you trust politicians? Do you care what they do in their private lives? Let me know in the comments below, and let's get into the news.
This morning, Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn.
Well, firstly, he's gorgeous. Doesn't look like a politician, does he? Like a swimwear model.
Under fire from members in his own party after presumably linking GOP lawmakers to sex parties and cocaine.
If he is telling the truth about that, that's sort of amazing, isn't it, that they're having sex parties? I mean, some of you that are more into the esoteric side of what goes on in politics have some pretty outlandish ideas about the things that happen behind closed doors and won't be surprised to hear this. But if he is lying, that's even more mad. Yeah, I've got a lot of sex parties. I'm always being invited to them, do you? No. North Carolina Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn has issued a statement following his controversial comments in which he claimed that he's been invited to an orgy. Come over here. I was invited to an orgy the other day. Plenty of people are pretty attracted to me. Did they? No. And he's seen anti-drug advocates do cocaine. I suppose what's behind an accusation like that is the idea of hypocrisy. Now, obviously, we don't know if there are sex and drug parties all over Washington, but, probably there are. There seem to be everywhere in the world. That sort of stuff seems to go on. What's more interesting, to me at least, is the idea that lawmakers and people that take a moral stance on that kind of behaviour actually engage in that behaviour. And what's even more interesting is that there are things that are explicitly and overtly understood and known by us that, in my opinion, are much worse than what people do with their own bodies for pleasure. An interesting comparison from our country, the UK, where I live, is that all the while during lockdown, while people were confined to their homes under pain of death and fear of shame, the Conservative Party that run our country, the equivalent, I suppose, of your Republican Party, they're having parties almost literally every day. The only thing that mitigates it is their parties were really shit and involved cheese and tinsel and wearing Santa Claus hats. Hey man, let's go, we're having a party. So, yeah, maybe they are doing that in Washington. I just hope the parties are a bit cooler. Then all of a sudden you get invited to, like, oh, hey, we're going to have kind of a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like, what did you just ask me to come to? We are having a sexual get-together at one of our homes. RSVP. And use what you like as ink. And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Or the fact that, there's some of the people that are leading on the movement to try and remove...
Do you want to keep listening to the end?
Our country. And then you watch them do, keep up...
How much more is there?
Oh, it's like a 12-minute whole thing.
No, I know. But I wanted to get... There's a point where they start asking Republicans about how they feel about his comments.
Oh, so here.
That's what I want everybody to hear.
Okay, so here. Here. They go into Kevin McCarthy. Okay, faces backlash. Here we go.
Interesting side note is that microphone coming out of his head makes him look like a little ant.
Yeah.
But now Republicans say he has crossed the line.
I think you crossed the line.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy summoned Cawthorn to his office to tell him his comments were unacceptable.
Those comments were unacceptable. My God, are you wearing a new perfume? Would you like a quick... Oh, I can't help myself. How can I stay mad at you?
He's lost my trust. He's going to have to earn it back. He's got a lot of members very upset.
You think so too, if you accuse people of having orgies and cocaine parties. It is irritating, but again, all of us are drawn to these kind of salacious sex and drug stories, but really what we should be interested in is the behaviour of the powerful and the way that Congress and its inhabitants continually operate and the financial impropriety that defines that institution.
McCarthy telling reporters Cawthorn had no evidence and did not tell the truth.
He's got no evidence. Few. And anyway, aside from that, he did not tell the truth. And maybe though he hasn't got any evidence.
Sources say Cawthorn was asked to publicly apologize. Overnight, he claimed his comments were taken out of context.
When I said that there are orgies and sex parties, I meant all over the world. And in films I've seen, like Oliver Stone's film, The Doors, and Wolf of Wall Street.
Congressman Nels, what did you make of those comments?
Well, the cliche that politicians are cigar-smoking fat cats sickens me. I'm holding this for a friend.
Yeah, he's holding a cigar. The Republican was holding a cigar.
Irresponsible.
Irresponsible.
That's ruining all the sex parties. And also, his accusation that we're in cahoots with the tobacco lobby pisses me off too. Right, guys?
But all of it has left his Republican colleagues on Capitol Hill frustrated.
I just think it puts us in bad light.
Yeah, it does. That's not very nice. Don't say that about our sex parties. We're trying our hardest to keep them secret.
What he's saying can't possibly be true.
Not for you, I'm inviting you.
What he's saying can't possibly be true.
If there are sex parties, I'd certainly know about it. You think they want to miss this piece of ass? You think they want to miss this? Huh?
Hawthorne still has one big name in his corner, Donald Trump, the former
Okay,
president.
you can stop it there.
Uh-huh.
So you saw these scumbags, right? You saw well, I mean, McCarthy is a known scumbag.
So can I read to you about McCarthy? This is from your favorite newspaper, Gateway Pundit. Kevin McCarthy says GOP could strip crooked Democrats from committee leadership positions. And Jim Hoft, he writes, don't believe it. Like, as in, don't believe McCarthy. Nancy Pelosi and Democrats booted Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene from her committee assignments in 2017 over comments she made years earlier on the Q movement on social media. Pelosi and Democrats then booted Republican Paul Gosar from his committee assignment from tweeting out an innocuous joke they claimed threatened Democratic AOC. Now Republicans are weighing on imposing term limits on committee leadership positions if the GOP takes the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy told Breitbart back in January that he would kick Democrats off committees in retaliation for the historic moves by Tyrant Pelosi. But don't get your hopes up. Kevin McCarthy comes from the same mold as Speaker John Boehner and Speaker Paul Ryan. He won't allow this to happen. He won't even impeach Biden. Just watch. Conservative voters better act now to pressure their party leaders, and we will get more of the same in 2023. That would be a tragedy for this country. That's it. Jim Hoft wrote that. Unbelievable. What do you think?
Dude, I don't know why it's unbelievable. Like, why would anybody think that McCarthy is anything but a swamp creature? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Look at him.
Yeah, sure.
Just look at him.
Just look at him. He's been there.
Come
How
on,
long has he been there?
I'm not saying there's anything about his face, but look at him and feel your intuition.
He's been there for a while. Yeah, he's kind of like, you know what he looks like? He looks like this kind of if Romney aspired to be Marjorie Taylor Greene but failed. That's what he looks like. You know?
He just looks like a younger Mitch McConnell to me, somewhat. You know, he has like that. You know, he has like that kind of like Brit Hume face. Even though Brit Hume, I don't know if Brit Hume is all bad, but I don't know, man. Something, you know what I mean? Like my instinct when I see that guy, I'm like, oh, dirty. I knew it.
Yeah.
Feel it.
Yeah, he's been.
By the way, Madison Cawthorn is like 25.
Yeah, he's 26 years old.
He's born 26. He was born in 91.
He was so McCarthy. He was elected. Yeah, he was elected in 2007. I'm sorry. Oh no, he was California State Assembly, and then he was elected to Congress in 2007. Just before, the year before Obama came. He's from California. So he represents, the Bakersfield, I think it was Orange County, I guess you could say. I believe, not mistaken. Bakersfield. Kern County. Oh, yeah. It's like basically the part of California that's like everything else besides San Fran and LA. Oh, his parents were Democrats, by the way. That's Reagan kind of was like that. He was a Democrat, then California Democrat, became California Republican.
The only reason why people don't look into that anymore is because of Reagan. Reagan was a Democrat, and he changed.
Yeah.
Became a Republican. So now, like, you can't say, "Oh, it was a Democrat."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's kind of like Bloomberg. Nobody cares. Nobody cares when people, flip around.
They care. I mean, they should care.
I don't know. How can we primary these people? There is a way to do that, right?
Not really. I mean, until again, it goes back to the voting system. Yeah. It's rigged.
You could say it's rigged, but then look at what happened in Jersey with that trucker guy who ran a campaign for $2,000.
Did it?
What do you mean, did it?
I mean, look, they stole the presidency clearly.
No,
and then they let a trucker become thing. Is that, to me, that's like they just let one slip by just to make it seem like it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's like a controlled, demolition.
Yeah.
All right? So, that, interesting, why, one thing that puzzles me is like, why didn't Trump, he knew that this was going to happen. He knew it.
Yeah.
He understood what was going to happen with the ballots and with all that kind of stuff, with the machines. Why didn't he start doing something about it right away?
Yeah.
That's a good question. That is a great question.
I think that he. My mom asks this question. My mother asks this question all the time, and I say that if he wants to, if the ultimate goal, let's say, is to destroy the party, the Democratic Party, he has to let them be seen and let them do what they're going to do. And for people to see it. Like to let them go as crazy as possible. To let them go be the bad shit that they are, and for the people to see the bad shit. People see it. It's not. You know what I'm saying?
I hope so.
It's not lost on people, you know what I'm saying? It's definitely not lost on the Hispanic community.
My greatest fear.
The only thing is that it's going to go too far. That's the, it's like.
My greatest fear is that God will just allow these people's plans to kind of like play out. I'm not talking about just the bad guys. I'm talking about even the plans of the good guys, right?
Yeah.
Their plans are always long-term and gradual and agonizing.
Yeah.
And my greatest fear is that God will just allow it to happen.
Yeah.
Like how do we, the real question is, how do we get God to hurry this up?
Yeah.
That's the real question. Can we ask that question? Greg, how do we get God to make it happen now and not wait for gradual stuff and to let the miracles begin happening? Like when, I'm so desperate for obvious reasons, but I try to look at whatever God puts in front of me. You understand?
Yeah.
Like we were promised miracles, were we not?
We were, but
we didn't come up with this, right?
But in our listen, man, I'll tell you something like kind of on a personal note. I've been dealing with this whole, with my apartment sale, and I've been seeing miracles. But again, these miracles have come by way of it's not der hateva, but by natural, so to speak, means. But they are miraculous things.
Okay, so I'm not.
Do you know what I'm saying?
You're talking about little personal miracles.
They are miracles. They are.
No, I understand.
I don't. They weren't like, this guy levitated and magically my apartment was sold and whatever. I mean.
So. So that's what I wanted to. That's what I wanted to get to. Can I get like 1 minute?
Sure.
To make a point.
Yeah.
So, when I'm looking around, right, to see what fits the description of what we were promised, right? So obviously I'm going to go to what's in the news, right?
Yeah.
It's UFOs, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what God is showing us.
Yeah.
Now, why UFOs? Why not like straight up angels or leprechauns or whatever?
Yeah.
Or ninjas or ice giants. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or space Vikings. Why does it have to be like UFOs, something scientific, right?
Yeah.
UFOs have been sold to us as something scientific. If it was some kind of like spiritual entity, which is what it is really, right? Yeah. Then it would be completely miraculous, right? Or it would be perceived as such.
Yeah.
This is another good point as to why perhaps this is, why UFO, why is God like serving it to us in this form?
Can I mention something, man? Like, I was
because of science. No, because of nature. Hold on, because of nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's miraculous.
Yeah.
It's delivering on the promises.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we could say how it's like miracles through nature. Just the nature that we haven't fully understood yet.
What I find interesting about, for example, this whole movement of scientists who are, they're very adamant. Like I was reading this book about this is British scientists talking about the Big Bang and all this stuff. And it's interesting how they're so adamant about the fact that there was a Big Bang, and it's almost, they know, as much as it's called a theory, but they know that there was a Big Bang, and there was a Big Bang. We call, in Kabbalah we call it Tzimtzum. But they'll say, but we don't know what caused it. It's amazing to me the literally the contradiction and the paradox of people that know something happened, like they know the back of their ass. Usually when people know something happened, they usually know what caused it. You know what I'm saying? And something big happened. They usually, they'll do an investigation. After the investigation, supposedly, allegedly, even the people who claim that, for example, 9/11, certain things, right? At the end of the day, whether they publicly claim this happened, it was the cause, was some Muhammad, whatever, or whoever it was, they know what caused it. Whether secretly they know or openly they know, right? These guys who run around saying that there was a Big Bang, they cannot even for a second consider that maybe it was like Tzimtzum and some sort of spiritual entity. But they know like they know. But after they tell you, spend an entire book, 500 pages, telling you they know, and all their formulas and all their theories, we have no idea what caused it. Don't you find that incredible?
Well,
how humans are just funny.
What they could say, you see, the thing is like this. I mean, they could always say, we're not precluding the possibility of some sort of creative entity. It can't be the one that the Bible thumpers are talking about.
Yeah, that's what this guy said. It can't be like this omnipotent God, and he wrote God with a small g, and he wrote G-O-D, a God, some God.
You know why? A lot of them they come up with some stuff that makes sense, actually. They're like, first of all, if that's the case, right, if this is an omnipotent God, right, who is micromanaging everything, that's absolutely inconceivable because God wouldn't do the stuff that has happened. He wouldn't allow it to happen.
Okay.
Right?
As if humans wouldn't allow it.
For everybody. It's an emotional response.
Yeah.
It's not a rational. It's not a rational thought. It's just an emotional
again,
response.
man. Elie Wiesel came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and said, how is it possible that a human being can believe in God after the Holocaust? And the Rebbe said to him, you want me to believe in people? After the Holocaust?
I get it.
It's a little bit of a cop-out answer, I guess. I don't know.
It is. And trust me, it's not easy for me to say that.
Because it's the Rebbe.
About the Rebbe.
Yeah, it's the Rebbe.
Yeah. For me, it's easier to say, I'm sure that story, there's more to the story.
Yeah. It's a nice word game the Rebbe played with another wordsmith, who understands word games.
Basically it's like, maybe he's saying that people are going to believe in something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
But that's what South Park says.
But I can't believe that the Rebbe would mean that, okay, so if I had to choose between people and God, I'm going to choose God. Because obviously people are not good. I can't believe that's what the Rebbe would meant. So let's just put that story, let's confirm that story. Yeah. Let's see if we can know somebody who can really,
corroborate
details on that.
Yeah.
Because it's as it stands, I don't want to give the Rebbe credit for that. Yeah. Because we don't know if that's how it went down. Because it's very unsatisfying.
Yeah, that's true.
It also, one of the things that drives me crazy, and I'm not associating this with the Rebbe, but there are some rabbis that I listen to, right, that will tell you stuff like that. They'll say the God that you don't believe in, I don't believe in either. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Or
like Rav Kook said that. Yeah.
They'll say that it's silly to think that well, how come God is not a big jerk? Let's put it that way. How come all of this stuff happens, right? All this horrible stuff and all this pain, insane, crazy stuff happens. Is mind-boggling, and so instead of thinking, well, maybe he's crazy or something like that, right? I'm just saying, hypothetically. Then you have to, so tell me why not? And usually the answer is, because I can't accept that there would be a God like that.
So
you understand?
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
what you're saying is that you're choosing the God that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
You're not looking at him as he is.
So this is, can I read to you from Chabad.org? This is actually a conversation that was had between Elie Wiesel and here, it says, this is Elie Wiesel writing this from Chabad, Michael Chigel, but he's writing, he's quoting Elie Wiesel. My first visit to his court lasted almost an entire night, writes Elie Wiesel in his memoirs regarding how he came to Brooklyn sometime in the early 60s. Wow, so it's like the Rebbe was only Rebbe for like 10 years. In order to make the acquaintance of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Rebbe had read some of my works in French and asked me to explain why I was angry with God. Because I loved him too much, I replied. And now, he asked, now too, and because I love him, I am angry with him. The Rebbe disagreed. To love God is to accept that you do not understand him. I asked whether one could love God without having faith. He told me faith had to precede all the rest. Rebbe, I asked, how can you believe in God after Auschwitz? He looked at me in silence for a long moment, his hands resting on the table. He replied in a soft, barely audible voice, how can you not believe in God? How can you not believe in God after Auschwitz? That initial protracted yehidus with the Rebbe, climaxing with the Rebbe's rhetorical question, made a permanent impression on Wiesel and an indelible effect on his writing. Wiesel would later go so far as to speak of it as a crisis, a pivotal moment in his literary career. That was a turning point in my writing, that simple dialogue. In 1964, Wiesel published his second novel, The Gates of the Forest, a story divided into 4 seasons, the last of which, Winter, is a vivid, detailed account of that meeting in the Rebbe's quarters. The account is grueling, heartbreaking, painfully vulnerable, and at some points just shocking. Auschwitz, of course, is the pivotal question of the conversation. How can you believe in God after Auschwitz? But as the conversation shifts from emotion to emotion, from argument to counter-argument, the Rebbe keeps pushing his visitor to reveal why he is really there, his deepest motivation for the visit. What do you expect of me? Asked the Rebbe, to which the knee-jerk response is, nothing, absolutely nothing. But the Rebbe is patient. By the end of the visit, the visitor will know why he came. In the meantime, the room is mostly filled with the sound of fury. Wiesel is not afraid of God, and therefore he is not afraid of the Rebbe. He speaks to the Rebbe as a plaintiff with a case against God, addressing God's defense attorney. He expects the Rebbe to work at defending God for the crime of Auschwitz, and it would seem that the satisfaction he seeks is to see the Rebbe fail in that task. But the Rebbe leaves him unsatisfied. Wiesel is utterly unprepared for the Rebbe's counter-proposal. Instead of playing the part of God's defense attorney, the Rebbe proposes to act as prosecutor on Wiesel's behalf. In Wiesel's own account, this startling shift is marked by a controlled explosion of indignation on the Rebbe's part. Do you think that I don't know it? That I have no eyes to see, no ears to hear, that my heart doesn't revolt? It is in this moment of Wiesel's narrative that we sense a certain degree of oversimplification carried out for the sake of fiction. A novel is no place for detailed philosophical arguments. Fortunately, we have a long letter that the Rebbe wrote to Wiesel less than a year after The Gates of the Forest appeared in print, in which the Rebbe articulates his position, proposed prosecution of God in great detail and with sharp force. I agree with you, of course, that the complaint shall not the judge of all the earth do justice. This is from Bereshit. Can be authentic and can have its proper force only when it breaks forth from the pain-filled heart of a deep believer. Moreover, we find that indeed the first one who ever expressed this complaint was Abraham our father, the greatest believer and father of believers, sons of believers. We are also told by the sages that the first to have posed the question of the righteous one who suffers, the wicked one who prospers, was none other than our teacher Moshe Rabbeinu, the same one who explicated to the Jews and to the entire world the idea of I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods, where the category of other gods includes the human intellect and understanding when one makes these into idols and supreme authorities. Familiar. For this reason, I was surprised that you did not see the course of thought through the end and bring out its conclusion. After all, as you know, the answer to the complaint of Moses our teacher, according to the account of our sages of blessed memory, when shown how Rabbi Akiva's flesh was ripped off with iron combs, Moses our teacher burst out, "This is Torah, and this is its reward?" The answer to this was silence. Thus it arouses the supernal mind.
Shtok. Thus it has arisen.
Yeah.
Thus it ascends in the supernal mind.
Yeah. Nevertheless, this did not weaken the faith of Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher, nor that of other authentic questioners and men. On the contrary, this only served to strengthen their faith, something to be found explicitly in the case of Eov, likewise in the case of Avram our father, who not only stood fast by his faith, but was able to withstand every test, and likewise the other rebels, quote unquote, who maintained a deep faith until the last days of their lives. I think you will agree with me that it is no mere coincidence that all authentic questioners retain their trust in God. Rather, it could in no way be otherwise. So long as the question is asked with integrity, it is logical that such a deep feeling can come only from the conviction that a true justice is the justice that stems from a superhuman source, that is, from something higher than both human intellect and human feeling. It is for this reason precisely that the question unsettles not only a person's emotion and intellect, but also his interiority and the essence of his being. But after the initial tempestuous assault, he has to realize that the entire approach on which the question is based, and of wishing to understand with the intellect that which is higher than the intellect, is something that cannot take place. Moreover, he must, after a rattling outrage and thorough grieving, ultimately come to the conclusion, nevertheless I believe, ani ma'amin, on the contrary, even more strongly. This is the subtext, the full content of the Rebbe's rhetorical response, how can you not believe in God after Auschwitz? One must read it over a few times, especially the last line, to appreciate the radical and revolutionary character of the Rebbe's response to the question of Auschwitz. Whereas various writers on Holocaust theology have suggested in various ways that a Jew must continue to believe in God despite Auschwitz, not a single voice has had the temerity or the radical logic to suggest that a Jew must continue believing God because of Auschwitz. Not despite of, but because of. Actually, that was my thinking before I even heard the Rebbe's stuff. For the Rebbe, Auschwitz is not something...
Right, so what's the explanation as to because of? Why?
Because of?
It's like beating around the bush for 5 hours.
Listen. We spoke about this before, and I'm not justifying anything. I'm not telling you, I'm not justifying anything. You know the singer Shlomo Katz. This is going to sound horrible and harsh, right? But it's actually quite maybe fitting in the theme of Pesach. How do you purify? What is one of the ways to purify something?
By making it suffer, I know.
Not by making it suffer. No. Specifically, I'm talking about a vessel, a kli. How do you purify kli? What's one of the ways? Or a few of the ways. Name some of the ways.
By burning it.
Precisely.
Yeah, I know.
And why do they call any rabbi who refers to the people who perished in the Holocaust? He calls them kedoshim. They don't call them victims. You know, there's a word for victim in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, right? They don't call them victims. They call them kedoshim. Like the holy ones.
Dude, my complaint is not that something was necessary to be done. What I'm saying is, God created a system.
Yeah.
Okay? And part of the system is that if you don't do teshuvah, right?
Yeah.
Then it's done. Then the purification is done by suffering.
Well, listen, man.
Wait.
You know what was going on in Europe at that time.
Hold on. No. Wait, Greg. No. Hold on. Okay. So what I'm saying is, God didn't have to do it that way.
He didn't have to. You're right.
Okay. So I'm not complaining that I get the system, kind of. You know, like the basic idea, right? I'm saying is why this system? Why?
I don't know.
It's insane.
Listen, man, it seems like...
I'm not asking you to answer that.
No, I'm not answering. I'm just saying it seems like today where, it's almost like... It's almost as if he did this to, like, give us a lesson for the future, but the only lesson seemingly we took was to turn it into a freaking marketing campaign with a nice slogan and not really understand that all we have to do, for example, is believe a psycho when he writes a book, as absurd as the contents of the book are. Right, 20 years prior to when he actually takes action. That's what I told my mother about this schmob guy and whoever else. Or believe these psychos when they make videos 10 years before something happens. All you have to do is believe them. All you have to do is listen to them, and we clearly haven't learned that lesson, right? So maybe Hashem created the situation so that we know what to look for, but then again, why would there have to be another situation?
Right, there's no answer.
Which Hashem is seemingly allowing again, and and not only that, when you bring up that it's similar to the previous situation, people get offended because they lost a grandmother, a great grandmother, whatever. Like it's just this. It's almost like a trap,
It is a trap, and Chazal say as much numerous times. I've heard it. You know, the Garden of Eden was a trap. The golden calf was a trap. Right. So it always comes down to it's God's doing it for some incomprehensible reason.
So can I just finish reading? This guy's talking about, you know, why. Here, the radical logic, the logic of holy chutzpah, seems to run as follows. Yes, we must prosecute God for Auschwitz. Yes, we must demand from God that He give us an explanation. After all, we cannot explain it with our human intellect. But in order to prosecute God, we must believe that God is there. You know, it's almost like you're saying, you know, when people complain, you know, the only reason they complain is because they know somebody's listening. You know, this whole leftist. And that God is inherently benevolent. Without those two fundamental assumptions, the question cannot be asked at all. In the very demand for an explanation, we affirm our trust in God and His goodness. What the Rebbe wished to impress upon Wiesel was that the already imperative reality of the emunah, the faith and trust upon which Wiesel's own fury was premised in all his arguments against God. In light of this extraordinary epistle, those who are familiar with Wiesel's writings can see how that long night in the Rebbe's quarters in Brooklyn was indeed, as Wiesel says, a turning point in my writing. Wiesel not only went on to write many books on biblical, midrashic, Talmudic, and Hasidic themes. In retrospect, he came to appreciate his entire corpus as an expression, howbeit gnarled and broken, of emunah. As he states in his memoirs, I have never renounced my faith in God. I have risen against his justice, protested his silence, and sometimes his absence, but my anger rises up within faith and not outside it. I admit that this is hardly an original position. It is part of Jewish tradition. Avram and Moses, Yirmiyahu, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berdichev teach us that it is permissible for man to accuse God, provided it be done in the name of faith in God. If that hurts, so be it. Sometimes we must accept the path of faith, pain of faith, so as not to lose it. By the end of the long soul-searching session with the Rebbe, Wiesel came to confess, or rather to discover, why he really came to see the Rebbe. You asked me what I expect of you, and I said I expect nothing. I was mistaken. Make me able to cry. In the original Yiddish version of the book that came to be called Night, Wiesel recalls how the death of his father in Buchenwald had traumatized his capacity for tears. It was like made him numb. The light of his world was extinguished, he writes, but I did not cry, and this is what causes me the most grief, this inability to cry. The heart had petrified. The fountainhead of tears had dried up. When Wiesel pleads with the Rebbe, make me able to cry, we understand that this is not some incidental request blurted out during that Yehidus, or some flourish added to a fictional novel for dramatic effect. The request is nothing less than Wiesel's secret reason for coming to the Rebbe. He did not come expecting the Rebbe to change the past, and if he came in order to challenge the Rebbe and hear him fail to defend God, he was disappointed in this, as we have seen. Wiesel came to the Rebbe for the same reason that anyone ever went to the Rebbe. He went to discover his true request. And so face to face with the Rebbe, the being seen by the Rebbe, allowed him to see his true self and to articulate his deep-felt need to become transparent to himself. Make me able to cry. In the Rebbe's response, did the Rebbe put his arms around the broken man and allow him to experience his long-awaited catharsis? Did he come forth with his famous paternal love and allow Wiesel to weep on his shoulder and mourn for the father lost in Buchenwald? Again, the Rebbe responded in an unexpected manner. Yes, he did encourage Wiesel to find the needed catharsis for his grief, but not in weeping, because weeping is not an adequate form of catharsis for the colossal suffering of Auschwitz and Buchenwald. The Rebbe shook his head. That's not enough. I shall teach you to sing. Grown people don't cry. Beggars don't cry, speaking of toxic masculinity. The Rebbe added, crying is for children. Are you still a child, and is your life a child's dream? No, crying is no use. You must sing. In 1973, Wiesel composed a cantata titled Ani Mamin, a song lost and found again. The song concludes with the following verses. I believe in you, even against your will, even if you punish me for believing in you. Blessed are the fools who shout their faith. Blessed are the fools who go on laughing, who mock the man who mocks the Jew, who help their brother, singing over and over and over. I believe in the coming Mashiach, and though he tarries, I wait daily for his coming. I believe. Interesting. So what do you get
after all that, here we are.
Yeah.
You know, there's no answer.
Yeah.
Okay? Like I wouldn't even expect the Rebbe. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's the guy that's gonna know. If somebody knows something, it's gonna be him,
right.
And he didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he wasn't told. Let's put it that way. He wasn't given over that part of the information.
Yeah, man, it's tough. You know, it's not. It's better. It's better, I think, if like people don't get into the topic at all, right?
Yeah.
Or when I say people, I mean rabbis, and when I say topic, I mean try to explain, right? Or try to, like, let's say, stick up for God.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we see it happen all the time, right?
Yeah.
The people deserved it, and this was happening in the world, and that was happening. But it's all part of the system, and the system reacts when this happens, and it's a tragic. You know, it's like it's always taking God out of the picture, basically.
So there's actually, I think I mentioned
It's not
this
God.
to you.
It's the system. It's not God.
Did I mention to you this? There's actually a very, very. I didn't listen to all of it, and they have English subtitles. There's a rabbi, Israeli rabbi, who gets into. He doesn't, for sure, does not leave God out of the equation, but he gets into deep sources and very, very intricate history of what was going on in Europe, what was going on with, for example, he puts like he crafts a whole picture. He doesn't say this is why, he just crafts you a picture and lets you think.
You're talking about Victor Miller.
Was it?
I heard Victor Miller, give a.
It's not a Victor. It's not a Victor. No. It's not a Victor Miller. It's not a Victor Miller.
Describing it.
No. There's a rabbi. This has recently happened. This shiur, and he crafts the whole picture of the history of what was going on at the time. He brings sources of Torah.
Dude, I get
this guy. Rabbi Yosef Ben Porat. Where was God in the Holocaust? It's like a good hour and a half shiur. English subtitles, and he gets into history.
The point is like this. Look. All those things, right, would make sense and perhaps could be somewhat acceptable if we were just dealing with the people involved in doing the bad stuff.
By the way,
and as if there were no children and kittens in the world.
Sure, no, but he talks about also the role of the secular Zionists in this whole thing, because they did have a role.
I get it, but again, that's why not just the secular Zionists, right?
Yeah.
Who were responsible for this, right? I get it. I know there's bad people. They did bad stuff.
Yeah.
But what does the honey badger have to do with it? It was walking around in the forest, and it got blown to pieces,
dude,
by a freaking mortar.
I can ask the question. Well, we can ask the question. We can ask a very, very cold philosophical question, or not question. We can make a cold philosophical statement of people die every day. Our problem is not the fact that people die; it's how they die. Meaning, well, your problem is that they die. Most people's problem is not. Most people's problem isn't the actual death itself. It's the way. So, like, dude, I can ask the question.
That's mostly my problem. That's mostly my problem. Like,
I'm saying I can ask a question. Why did I had a pregnant 10 years ago. I was with somebody who was pregnant by me, and we lost the kid at 7.5 months. I can ask that same question. Why that? You know what I'm saying? And then you get into this whole Kabbalah. This kid had a tikkun, and this neshama had a tikkun. He came into the world for he was this, and it's a famous explanation. Okay, that's nice.
I gotta shake this up. You ever see Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes, but I don't remember the whole thing, but I saw it a long time ago.
There's this one scene that I saw when I was a kid that shook me. So basically, the premise is you have toons are real, like cartoons, right? Yeah. And they share the city, they share the world with like regular people, okay? And then you have this one character who hates cartoons. They call him the Judge, played by Christopher Lloyd. So he picked up a little cartoon shoe, like a cute little shoe, right? It was a shoe, and it had eyes and a face and everything, and it was like it was like a kitten, like something like that. You know what I mean? Like a little harmless little nothing having to do with nothing. And then there was this kind of substance which kills cartoons. Okay, it's like this chemical. I forgot what they called it in the movie. Okay, and he slowly dips this little shoe, right, into this like cartoon acid, right? It's like and it's making all these like little shrieks and sounds, right? And it's crying and doesn't know what's going on. It's one of the cruelest scenes in movie history. Yeah. It's one of the cruelest things depicted in history. So that's obviously there's no such thing as cartoons, right? But what is that? That cartoon is depicting something real.
Yeah.
a small, cute, little mushy, vulnerable creature that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
The fact that God brought that into the world and made it so vulnerable makes me feel like I can't have a relationship with God that I want to. You understand?
I get it.
I want to love God. I want to.
Yeah.
But the fact that he did that makes him unlovable to me.
I think,
if I'm being honest.
I think you're, if you look at it just from a very...
I can't.
No, if you, the way you're looking at it, obviously is obviously the, again, back to Derech HaTeva, you know, it's, and listen man, I'm the same way as you in that respect. It's connected to, it's more of an emotional connection, obviously. I think when we look at just the, even if you want to talk about Kabbalistic perspective, or what we know from the story of, or from the pre-Adam, you know, narrative, from whatever we know, let's say from Bar Tzadok or from wherever else, we understand that, not to say that obviously life itself has value, and the life of this little animal or a person or a tree or whatever has value, but if we're saying, or some of us are saying, that we essentially live in a very, very incredibly programmed virtual world. Like, I'll give you an example, man. You know what's funny? It's like a funny story about my cat. Right? My cat, and I've done this, and other people who are not his owners have done this with him. A cat. This is a cat, dude. I remind you.
Yeah.
It's not a human. You come to this guy, his name is Murzik. Or sometimes we call him A-hole, Jorge. We have a few names for him. We go, Murzik, you have to, like, we'll let him outside at like 5 o'clock in the evening, right? And we say, if you're not home, literally in English or in Russian, if you're not home by 10 o'clock, the door is, you know, closed, you're sleeping outside tonight. The guy, this has happened on multiple occasions. Multiple occasions. The guy has come home at that designated time on the spot. So now you ask the question. Okay, you can say animals understand language, human language, right? Fine. He understands that you tell him 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Okay, but what does 9 or 10 o'clock mean to him? Does he have a watch? Maybe he has an internal, you could say animals have internal clocks, they're able to look at the stars. I mean, maybe look at the sun, let's say in the daytime, but how the hell do they know 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock from a hole in the wall, right? So now there's people who talk about, you know, animals, or even Kabbalah I think mentioned this, that they are, you can be upgraded or downgraded depending on your deeds, right? They're demoted. You know, maybe this guy was a human. Maybe he miraculously somehow retained the ability to understand language. Many animals, not just, he's not the only cat that understands humans. Dogs understand us, obviously, we know that, you know. Commands, well, not just commands, conversations, they understand what's going on, you know. Two owners are talking about, we're going to go away, you know, they're sitting in a room, oh, we're going away, and the dog is in the next room overhearing, and he starts, like, you know, having a mishigas, you know, stressing out. Or my cat, he sits in my suitcase when he sees I'm packing, or sits next to it.
Yeah,
you know? Like, it's a human behavior. So, I don't know, man, like, you're talking about this animal, this happening to that animal, this and that and the other. We don't know the whole cosmic cycle of the neshama, or the level of the neshama that animal is going through. So to us, ostensibly, it looks like this animal got run over by a truck, or this animal got, you know, something happened to it. Yeah, again, the process of its demise was horrible to look at, and horrible to think about, and heartbreaking to...
And also horrible to experience.
Horrible to experience, for sure, for the animal, obviously, yes. But again, we talked about the machinery, again, in the beginning of this audio, we talked about the machinery versus, you know, we talked about the hardware versus the software. The software is intact, not only intact, but maybe that animal, let's say, went back to, maybe it was a human, then it went back to being an animal. We don't know all the cheshbonos. Maybe it went back to being a human after that. Or maybe it did some, you know, or maybe it was just, and then down to being a, you know, like, I don't know, like an ant or something. We have no idea. We have no clue. But what I do know is, man, it seems to me that different creatures on the, I guess you want to call it, say the Hishtalsalus of physical beings, you know what I'm saying, have retain abilities of beings that are higher than them. You know, like animals don't have free will, supposedly, allegedly, but they understand 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, be back home, this kind of stuff. Some of them, you know what I'm saying? I don't find it to be anything, a lot of people are just, oh my God, that's like a miracle, or is that some kind of like a, I mean, it is a miracle, but it's like, wow, you know, it's like a party trick that this animal is capable of, right? I don't find it to be anything, knowing what I know, it's not anything, it's funny, right? It's very funny, we laugh about it. Murzik, we told him and he came home at 10 on the dot, right? Literally, not 10:01, not 9:59, 10 on the dot. But I don't find it to be anything incredible, knowing what I know. You know? It's a human being. It's a demoted human being. And yes, it went through some sort of, you know, these beings go through some sort of demise, just like we go through some sort of demise. I'm not saying it's okay. Just the very concept of demise is not okay, but again, there's apparently, as it seems, from looking at science, there's some sort of process here and some sort of seder that goes on. That Hashem is privy to, and obviously it looks very brutal. It looks very brutal to our naked eye. It does.
Because it is brutal.
It is brutal. It is brutal. But that doesn't mean that you know, there might even be, dare I say, a positive, not a positive aspect just to its result. Maybe not its process, but to its result. Maybe this raccoon that got run over by a truck is going to come back as a human who is going to do something incredible in the world. And I'm sure it has. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I never argued against that.
Okay.
I've always agreed with that. Meaning not agreed with it, but I understand. I was saying, I know there's a system. I know. There's a very exacting system. I know that.
Not only that, I suspect that what to us looks brutal, and it probably feels brutal to the animal for like a second. You know how they say, you know, like if a person who is, you know, the people that like jumped out of the World Trade Center during 9/11, you realize that by halfway down, the person is already like unconscious. The person is essentially nifter.
I hope that's the case.
I hope
How
it's the
do
case.
you know?
You hope that they don't feel the pain of.
Right, but I know. But, you know, because every time I took the train and I saw the missing buildings, I thought about that every time.
Yeah.
But how do you know?
You don't know, but I mean, listen. No, we know from science that at a certain height, a person is out cold. So there is. You could say that there's limited pain. As much as it looks gruesome to us, the body.
Dude, this is news to me. Like that's
no,
what
it's
you're saying.
It's a scientific. It's just like, how do we know the animal is being checked with a sharp knife? Barely feels anything. That's what I always wondered. I mean, you explained that to me.
No, because I've seen the studies.
Okay, no. So I'm just saying there are studies that talk about people who fall from a high distance, and by the time they reach a certain, by the time they go.
I'd love to read them.
Yeah. No,
seriously,
it's
that would take a load off.
Yeah, it's a famous thing. So, one would like to think, that...
Look, here's what I'm saying.
To us, it looks more gruesome than it feels to the...
Look, if I rounded up Gates and Schwab and and that whole crew, right? And, and I put their heads on the chopping block, right? That is also brutal, right? But I can live with that. You know why?
Why?
Because in their minds, they understand what's happening. They know.
Brother, can I tell you something? Do you know what the most painful death that I heard of for anybody in history? And the people who did it, who committed this, these, I guess, who ran these operations, the Romans, they did this to the martyrs. The whole point is that it's not instantaneous. It's that it's slow and painful. That's actually, with these animals that you're describing, even with this Schwab, I don't want it to be beheading, because beheading is instantaneous. No, what they did to Rabbi Akiva. They wrapped him in the Torah and they poured, was it water? No, what are they? Paper, basically like paper mache, inflating while wrapped in paper. It's slow and it's painful, and the person the whole time is saying Shema Israel as if that's going to somehow dull the pain. It's not going to do that, and it did not. So
they didn't say that because they thought it was going to dull.
I know. I'm just saying, like, it didn't help. So, hello, you still there? Hello.
Are you talking to me, dude?
Yeah. Sorry, no. I got a phone call. I hung up. It was a whatever. Prank call.
No. I thought you were talking to the other person.
Yeah,
okay.
no. I was just saying. If anything, the painful, the guillotine is not.
I'm just saying.
It's being generous to these guys.
For a normal person.
I know. I'm just saying. It's just being generous to these guys.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting to see anybody. Pain or to see anybody's insides, just in general.
Yeah.
Right? My point is, like, forget about the way, like, whatever. Let's say some kind of, like, lethal, painless injection. Okay, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They would understand, they're capable of understanding, and they likely understand that what goes around comes around. And they can see the system play out.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
The main problem, so I have a problem with all types of cruelty and all types of pain and separation.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that there are most of the creatures, right, in the world don't fit into that category.
Yeah.
Most creatures have no idea what's happening to them or why. Okay?
Yeah.
So if there's some sort of cathartic process that's occurring, it's not on the conscious level in the experience of most creatures. Okay, that's one of the primary issues I have with this whole system.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't care for it.
Yeah.
Very much at all. Okay, and I know God is real. I know the Torah is real. I know that He's doing everything. But it says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. I wish it wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
It's unfair because He makes Himself unlikable. More than anything else that there is. Okay? Because look.
Well, is it?
I'm just dealing with the facts as I was taught.
Dude, isn't it so? Isn't it so?
If you're gonna say, hold on, Greg. If you're gonna say that He and this is what is said, that He is responsible literally for every moment, and not only that, the world. Nothing in the world could exist for even a moment without Him maintaining it, right? You could say, imagine this hypothetically. They said, well, God created the world, but then He kind of stepped away from it, and it's just kind of there by itself, right? Then you can kind of like go easier on God. You can say, well, listen, He wasn't there at that particular moment. He's not like making that happen. It's just He created it, and now it's kind of operating on its own, right? And He's not doing it. But the fact that the comb that was used to torture Rabbi Akiva, right? That comb can't exist without God saying, exist. Every moment, every little detail, every sensation of that entire experience and everybody else's experience requires that God maintain it constantly. Do you understand the insanity of that?
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not the one who came up with this idea. Okay, this is what it says.
So can I tell you something?
I believe it's true.
I'm going to channel Rabbi Manis Friedman and ask you a question. Even if you don't, are you capable of doing kivud abayim for a parent or as a person, any person capable? Do you think they should be capable of doing kivud abayim for a parent whom they don't like as a human being?
Yeah, I think it's possible.
Okay.
I think it's possible because why? Because nobody's God. That's why. Do you understand?
So you're saying God is supposed to be likable? I don't think so.
No. I'm just trying to say that that people who are I don't trust people who are in love with God. I don't trust them I'll explain to you why. Because if you're really in love with God and you're not a psychopath, I don't know how you're doing it. Okay? Because I can imagine a psychopath who doesn't give a shit what happens to other people. They're only just interested in themselves, right? They're like, look, whatever, God, I don't care what you do with everybody else. Can you just take care of me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, like he doesn't care what's going on with the animals getting beaten to death or the people getting starved. I didn't put it in that order because I'm prioritizing. I'm just saying, like, you know, whatever horrible thing comes to mind, okay? So you gotta be down with not giving a shit about those people in order to have this love, you know, this like fondness for God. You gotta be able to like not look at that kind of stuff. Or you gotta be able to look at that kind of stuff and not care, right? Like what kind of person you gotta be to achieve that, okay? So I have faith that there are people out there who they do love God, and they're not psychopaths, and they're not selfish maniacs. I just don't know how they're doing it. Okay? And it's not fair. It's not fair that we are required to if you're asked to live in reality, do you understand? Like I understand if you're talking to somebody and you're not emphasizing the truth. You're not telling them like you basically, for the average person to love God, you can't be too knowledgeable about the nuts and bolts of how things operate.
I think it's the other way. I think it's the other way around. The people you're describing are most of these Mekubalim sitting in somewhere in Nachlaot in a corner. These are the guys who love God, and that's who you're describing. They know all the nuts and bolts. That's precisely why they're. What I'm saying, when I say nuts and bolts, I mean like to see them operate. You understand? Not to know about them in a disconnected way, sitting in the room. You notice they're sitting in a room somewhere. I know,
right? They're not going outside. They're not seeing the shit go down.
But you think those guys have that. The point is some of the guys that I'm talking about. I mean, the reason they are sitting in rooms is because they have seen the shit go down. But now what they're doing is they're sitting in a room because they are trying to get into the text of the deepest sources to figure out why they are seeing the shit go down, or even when they leave their room to go to Agrippas to get a malawach or whatever they're going to go get. They have to leave that room at some point, right? Those books are going to explain to them, just hear me out, what it is that they're seeing and why they're seeing it, and not only explain to them why, but to understand even the bigger picture that it is it's going to be what it's going to be, and not only that, but then to elevate to a higher realm, to even so much. Like I met these people, they transcend it.
There's a missing ingredient.
What's the missing ingredient?
Right. Because, like, I'm familiar enough with the system.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
You don't have to know every detail of the system, right? The more details you know, it's not like the more okay you become with it. Okay? You just know that there's a system, and there's a mita connected mita, and it's very exacting, and there's all this kind of stuff. Okay? So my claim is it's not my claim. I actually never claimed this. I never said this out loud, right? When I'm talking to a rabbi, right, who's trying to explain this kind of stuff, what's really going on in my mind, I cannot share with them.
Why
because
not?
Because I'm looking at them and I see that this is a human being too.
Yeah.
And if I share with them what my thought is, it might drag them into the hell that I'm in.
Can I tell you something? Some of the rabbis that I met, some of them are Bali Tshuva, some of them are not. But either way, they have been people who have managed to tap into certain.
Yeah, but here's how. Here's what I'm suspecting.
Just listen. So, and I've mentioned these things to them, and they are not pulled down into anything. They sometimes they say I don't know. Sometimes they say. They try to do their best to explain what's going on. But then you have these rabbis in yeshivas who don't know who you're, like the ones you said, you're afraid to mention these things to them because they will be pulled down because they don't really, either they haven't learned Pneumius enough And if they have, it's just an idea to them. It has not become like brutally real. That's what I'm saying. For me, that's the litmus test between like a legit rabbi and just like a kiruv rabbi, or just like, let's say, a Talmid Chacham, which is kind of like whipping out sources. You know, I have, so to speak, not to say I use rabbis, but you know what I mean? Like, I have no use for such people. To me, I don't even relate to them. They're nice people, but I just don't relate to them because it's almost like the Torah isn't real. Like you say, for a lot of these guys, it's like becomes like a self-help book. You know, it doesn't become brutally real. I can't come to them. Like, there was this one rabbi I knew, I can come to him and talk to him about, can you please explain to me why, this is at that time, why my fiance is behaving in a certain way. And he starts telling me about, women from a Kabbalistic perspective, the reality of today's women, the reality of this, the reality of that, how he would approach it, even though kind of like, he tried to give me like a little bit one size fits all, but that's a separate issue. It's more like an Israeli style. But like, these to me are real people. I've met a handful of them, let's say, literally, I can count them on one finger in my life. And I don't know why, but most of them are Sephardi. Maybe one, I think, is Ashkenazi. If there's 5, there's 4 of them are Sephardi, 1 is Ashkenazi. There's also a reason for that, right? We know the why. So, and one of them I think is Chabad, whatever. So, it's interesting.
Okay, so now I'd like to make my point. I listened to you.
Okay.
I listened to you.
Okay.
So, when I look at rabbis, I didn't always used to do this, but now I see human beings.
Yeah.
Okay? All right? And it's unfair to ever look at them as anything else. Okay?
Yeah.
And I feel that the way they cope with it, those that are, this is the only thing that I can think of. Okay? The way they cope with the horrifying reality of the world is that they say like this: I can't think about it. I literally can't. I'm a limited, finite being.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm very, very finite. I'm just a little creature. Okay?
Yeah.
I cannot take on the entire, all of the grief and all of the, the judgment of all this horrible stuff that has occurred to the world. It's literally impossible for any creature to do that. So I just won't. Because it's not possible, I won't look at it. I can't look at it, and it's not my job to look at it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's about as, and then those who have been through it, right?
Yeah.
How do they reestablish some kind of loving? How do they daven, right?
Yeah.
Like how do they have any warmth in their heart at all? Some. Hold on, no, I'm not asking. I'm just gonna say that, like, so.
I wasn't going to answer. I was going to ask my own question.
Some of the Rebbes who lost all their kids in the Holocaust.
I was going to ask my own question. How do people who have no challenges at all, or very limited challenges, like these 21-year-old guys in Flatbush who are steiging in yeshiva, how do they daven with any... How is anything real? Do you know what I'm saying? How is anything real to them? How is it not just... how is it not just like lamdus and shtick?
No, it's not. No, it's possible. Like you can have a person,
I guess,
who's never suffered, be grateful for the things that they enjoy in life.
No, for sure, grateful, yes. But how? What I'm talking about is a 21-year-old guy standing and reading the Amidah, especially a guy who's never been to Israel, physically never been to Israel, and he's reading about getting back to Beit HaMikdash, getting back this, getting back very physical things, real things. That when I daven for them, I think about. Like, I literally think about, like, that moment when I went to Har HaBayis on a tour, and I I visualize it in my head. You know what I'm saying? Or, like, I visualize, I don't know, the place, Shiloh, where the Mishkan was. Like, this is, like, these things are physically real to me, and I'm davening for them to be physically real. How's a 21-year-old guy who never been there, who he doesn't even know what he's talking about? It's an idea from the that he read in the Gemara that's like this...
Okay, so
floaty
somebody
idea.
learns about something, they get a picture in their head.
Yeah.
It could be a positive thing on their level. They can connect to something.
Yeah.
I don't believe that people have to suffer in order to really understand.
Not even suffer. Just like something has to be tangible. Real, tangible at some level.
Okay, so I mean, whatever is available. Do you understand? Dude, for thousands of years, Jews in Tunisia.
Yeah.
How the hell they also davened somehow?
Yeah.
None of them ever saw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like freaking Tunisia's further away from Israel than Poland is.
I guess you could say the same thing with the Flatbush guys, but they have a long. Some of these guys have a Masorah that goes back to some of their relatives were the Amoraim. So I guess you could say that's already ingrained. It's like spiritual DNA with these guys. You could say the same thing for the Tunisians.
Yeah. They go to camp. The rabbis make them build models of the base of Mikdash, and then they burn it
on
Tisha B'Av, just to give them a sense of. That's a famous story for the folks at home. Basically, there's I don't know if it's like an urban legend or whatnot. I think it may have happened. Yeah. This one rabbi, he wanted the kids to get like a slight inkling of to make Tisha B'Av real. Tisha B'Av is when the temple was destroyed. Yeah. So he said, all right, guys, we're going to do a project for Tisha B'Av. We're going to build a very complicated, detailed model of the temple and the entire complex. Yeah. Okay? We're going to it's really going to be amazing. And the kids got really into it. And they really went out, they really, really outdid themselves. And it was amazing. And they thought it was going to be there forever. It was going to be it's going to travel over the world. It's going to go to museums. People are going to look at it and be like, ooh, right? So what happened? The rabbi burned it on Tisha B'Av. And the kids were destroyed. He goes, can you imagine what the real Beis HaMikdash is like? Yeah. I mean, that's psychotic. It's awesome. That's hilarious, actually. Yeah. Just as a concept. I mean, and it's extreme. I kind of, that's kind of my kind of thing. But still, you know what I mean? Like, basically, I think that there's a natural denial mechanism that kicks in that allows a person to be able to live life. Just in some kind of functional way, right? Where you can't think of all the horrible stuff that happened. You just kind of let it flow away into the background, okay? And then you try to live in the moment. And I don't know what else these people could possibly be doing, because if there's anything else besides that, these holy people, right? They're not sharing it with us. Okay? There's no answers. Nobody's providing answers as to how they're doing it.
They're not sharing it with us, but I'll tell you something. When and if any one of us has the zchut to ever meet them, I'm sure you've met at least one of them. I've met a few of them. I met a few of them it's almost like Hashem sent me to them or sent them to me. I remember ever since it's almost like it's funny, like ever since I landed back in America almost 10 years ago, I had almost like a tour de force, some way, somehow, whether through friends or some hashgacha pratis, meeting them, a few of these different guys. They're all legit. Either they were in New York or in Israel, and when you meet them, it's almost like a thing of one of the aspects I will say is that you kind of feel. I guess it's akin, I would say, lahavdil, what people felt when they had Yuchas with the Rebbe. You kind of feel like almost in this, if you just even spend 5 or 10 minutes listening to this person or even being around such a person, you get the feeling that everything's going to be okay. Whether it's parnasa, whether it's this, whether it's that, or if you are going to have challenges, that you at the very least you're going to have a kind of a certain lens how to be able to tackle or even see those challenges, as opposed to 99% of people on planet Earth. And I don't know why Hashem had me meet these people ad nauseum for the past 8 years. At some point, I stopped voluntarily going to them. I think last time I went to one of them was last year. because what happens is kind of like, sometimes we think we have like a whole plan of action of what we want to do in our lives at any given time, right? So comes along this guy, and he'll tell you something that's literally contrary to your intuition or contrary to even like zbivat tibe. He'll like knock you off your plans. And not only that, it basically confuses the hell out of you, and it takes away your free will, because we like to retain that, right? We like to retain freedom of choice. And so at some point, stuff starts getting very confusing, because again, these guys are tapped into Hashem more than we are, and since that's the case, we cannot understand why the hell Hashem would want us to do X, Y, and Z, as opposed to our intuition, which tells us to do Z, Y, X. Right? So it just gets very confusing, and at some point I just stopped going to these guys. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do, and do it with emunah, do it with faith, with emunah, with bitachon, and just,
I think the reason that happened is because there's a lot less of these guys than you think.
I know there is. No, I know, and I think I saw a lot of most of them. there's like 5 of them. I mean, there's 36 of them, but I'm talking about specifically some of the guys I saw are not part of the 36, but they are people who are, who have tapped into something, or God gave them something, or they have a Masorah. Like one of them had a Masorah from his grandfather. He was a Yemenite, Sharabi, his name is. So actually, this one passed away, the one that I saw. So he had a Masorah from his whole family. It's not like he was born with some powers or whatever it is. I mean, he honed it, he cultivated it, right? But listen, I could say that my rabbi has certain, and this is a young Baal Tshuva rabbi who said some stuff to me about, people that I know, and I asked him some advice about somebody I know, and there's no way he would have known. Like, the stuff that he blurted out, there's no way that I didn't even ask him about it. He just kind of blurted it out as like a thing, tangential thing. There's no way he would have known that this is how this person is or how this person behaves, or that it's even relevant to what I was, the advice I was asking. So it's something that either people have as a Masorah from the family, or it's something that people develop through, lamdus, through davening, a lot of it is through his borodus, through personal prayer in the field, personal conversations even with Hashem. It's not even prayer; it's conversations. It's like coming to him and yelling at him.
Here's a personal prayer. God, please hurry up and send the redemption, send Mashiach, and because I want to have all blockages that I have moved away, so that I can have a real life with you. I'm not very excited by anything in this world that you put me in. It's tragic and boring for the most part. Except, sometimes you show me a beautiful girl. That's cool every now and then, but that's very transient.
Not only transient, it's almost like kind of teasing, because nothing you can do.
I know, it's even worse. You make, first of all, thanks for teasing us so, insanely, but whatever.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, please, to hurry up and send Mashiach. There's at least one guy, 2 guys that I know that are not overly excited about our business dealings here in this world, or about the experiences that are possible in this gullus reality. We know that when you finally show up and you finally show us what this is all about, that's when all the interesting stuff only begins, and we're more than ready for that. Well, actually, we're not ready for it, but we're definitely ready for this part to end.
You know what I always say?
That's an honest prayer. That's an honest prayer.
Amen. I mean, recently I've been saying, even if it happens by some sort of process, I just want even the process to go faster. Even if you're not going to do it, I mean, obviously we know it's going to be instantaneous, right? But I want just the process that we're seeing before us. It's going we know there's some kind of process going, even like Derech HaTeva, right? Political.
It's disgustingly
It's excruciatingly slow. It's ridiculous. It's almost like you ever see somebody try to start a carburetor engine car? You know, like the cars in the 80s and 70s,
sure,
pressing the gas in the winter and turning the key simultaneously. And it's just like, after like 10 cranks of the key, I had a car like that, a Buick Century in 1986. Finally the damn thing starts, and then it like dies one time and you have to restart. It's just like, it's just like, come on, man. Just get the remotes, you know, get the automatic key. Press the button. Install the button and press the brake and push the button and start the damn car. What are you dicking around with this carburetor engine for? What is this? Terrible.
It's ugly. It's stupid. I don't.
The only rational explanation could be that it has to happen. Maybe that it needs to happen this way in order for these evil people to be slowly destroyed.
Why slowly?
I don't know.
Right. There's no explanation, dude.
I don't
There's
know.
No
the only explanation is because Hashem wants us to be a partner with Him, and He wants us to do hishtadlus about it, on it. He wants human beings. He doesn't want it just to be like Hashem's going to do it for us. It's kind of like your parent.
Here's how you can do it.
When your parent does it for you, or you do it yourself.
He puts them all in a giant blender and says, "Here's a button. I press it. Great, we're partners."
Listen, but that's like the parent. Either he's going to teach you how to make the omelet, or he's going to do it or he's going to like do everything, and then you do like one little tiny.
God's going to teach me how to be God?
No, just
come on.
Not God, but something short of it. You know, there's a song, Gogol Bordello, "Я не еврей, но кое-что похоже." Like that. You know? I'm not a Jew, but I look kind of like it, you know? This is a Ukrainian guy singing the song.
Nice.
Dude, did I tell you my dream about Eliyahu Hanavi? I told you this in private. I wanted the folks at home to hear.
Yeah, sure.
I don't even remember the whole context of the dream. I just remember I'm in some sort of... I don't know if it's a shtetl or like a modern day... some kind of retreat. And somebody's... I don't even remember even... like sometimes you forget like details of the dream. But somebody's writing something. There's a bunch of people, and I don't know if we're playing a game or somebody's writing something, on the dry erase board, like a whiteboard with a marker. And every time they write a sentence, somebody will mysteriously, one of the words is erased. It's almost like a ghost is erasing it. And then everybody somebody notices. They're like, "Guys, did you see what just happened?" Yeah. And then somebody writes it again. I think it was in English, like another word. And then again, a ghost like erases it, with like it's almost like a invisible, what's it called, sponge. And then next scene is I'm walking on like a bridge, one of those bridges. Remember, like, the bridge that they have. It's not even a bridge. It's like the pier, the small pier. Remember at Dawson's Creek, that little pier that they had.
Dawson's Creek. I didn't watch that game
Whatever,
show.
like,
You watched it?
I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to give you a visual. Like, there's little piers by the lake.
I think I remember from the commercials, right?
Piers by the lake that people jump off of, in the camps and whatever. So I'm walking, but the pier is very, very high, and then all of a sudden I see like a neighboring pier. I see, I guess it's out of the, but it's not out of the water. It's out of like down below. There's like a forest of like high trees. And a very high ladder comes out of that forest and leans up against the pier. And then I see this lanky, long, tall figure, dressed in a bekisha and I guess kind of one of these like Breslov kind of style hats. And the face looks like it's like a puppet, but it's like it's like a man's face with like a mustache and a beard, but it's like a puppet. But the body is moving like a human being. And then I start yelling to the rest of the people in the retreat, "Guys, Eliyahu Navi." And I remember in the dream I got like chills, like when you see something that's like super not of this realm. I don't know if you ever had that when you're like, I've had that happen to me, like when I'm in the room and I feel something like something's in the room and I get like chills, I got chills in the dream. I'm like, it's Eliyahu Navi. Everybody starts running over, and then and then I wake up. Like Eliyahu Navi is trying to climb up the ladder, and he's trying to get up to the the plank, the pier. And I don't even know how I knew it was Eliyahu Hanavi, because he didn't announce himself. He didn't say anything. You know, he was just trying to climb up this ladder. And he's very tall. He's like very tall, very thin. You know, kind of almost cartoony, you know?
Yeah.
And wearing this long black bekisha, looked kind of Hasidish. And I knew it was him. And then I woke up. And I woke up, and this was after the second Seder night. And what's funny is I wasn't.
I hope that you are a prophet. I really do.
You know, I'm not a prophet, but you know, I told this one guy who I know, this little, it's a guy I know, Russian-speaking guy. He's a little bit kind of, let's use the word clairvoyant. And let me tell you what he wrote to me when I told him this kind of story. I didn't tell him the whole story in detail. I just said I saw Eliyahu Hanavi. I think I did. In my dream.
Listen, dude, Eliyahu Hanavi is the angel Sandalphon, right? Yeah. Sandalphon is the Malach of Asiya. Yeah. He's the head Malach of Asiya, and his myriads of angels are the Galgalim, the Ophanim.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
the wheels.
Can I just read to you what he? So he asked me. I told him I saw Eliyahu Hanavi in my dream. Very tall and wore Hasidic clothing, like Breslov style hat and bekisha. And then he goes, what did he say? Was with a cane or a stick? Was he glowing with wings? I said he didn't say anything. No cane, no stick. Just a tall man, looked like kind of like a Muppet character, but moved like a human. Very tall and very thin. And then he goes, how did you know it was Eliyahu? I'm like, and then I said like 7.5 feet tall, like one of these tall basketball players, like really tall. And I said, I don't know, because I knew. And he goes, so he was wearing a strimal? I was like, no. I said there was no mistaking that it was him. I felt it by intuition, in the dream. I said no strimal, but like a Breslov hat, those Breslov top hats. And he goes, white talus and kittel. I said I got confused. I thought he meant like kittel, but it wasn't. It wasn't white talus. And then my friend writes, wow, Hashem is planning something with a smiley face. And then I go, no, not kittel, but like a Shabbos suit, like a bekisha, like those silk bekishas, black bekisha, like Shabbos garb, but black, long coat. And then he goes, that means for sure some pharaoh in the east is going to pass like Pharaoh in Egypt. And then he goes, I hope Putin. And then he goes, I saw, and then he just writes this whole thing about what he saw in his dream. And then he goes, Hashem is doing things. He's like, I saw a mazikim, with a side eye. I don't know what that means. Hooded shadow, looked right after. I told Hashem this and that. And then he starts telling me all these different things. And then I showed him a picture, an example of like kind of the face I saw. And then I go, I saw that face, but a black small beard. I found like a puppet of like a rabbi, but very tall, moved like a human, but puppet face. And he said, it's like Hashem told. And then he goes, and he's talking about some sort of astrological stuff. And that's it. And then he just says like, that's what he said.
Yeah, okay,
supposedly
great. Let's get a move on.
Hashem is doing something.
Yeah, great. Let's get a move on.
Let's get a move on, man. Let's get a freaking move on, because this is not sufficient. Not sufficient.
It's really not.
But here's my question. You said that you were disappointed. You were expecting to be transported to Israel, but isn't it what Mashiach cannot come on? No, Mashiach can come on Pesach. He can't come on Shabbos.
Sure, he can.
So when did he say they can't come? Which day? Yom Kippur?
There's no day that Mashiach can't come.
Okay.
The Rebbe's attitude, and I've heard this so much, is let him come and then he'll explain to us how he did it.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't let him come, on a Tuesday, like I said, while I'm driving on Collins, staring at Broad. Let him come, and I don't care what moment. Now, do you see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, all these. Oh, man, I'm so fed up with it. God, it's good. Just let him come, Just anyway. So I'm just saying that, like, that Eliyahu, and from a certain point of view, Eliyahu's department has been in the news.
Yeah.
Right? That's Eliyahu. That's his department.
Yeah.
Okay? So That's how I'm interpreting it. I don't see how anybody who has a familiarity with Torah, right, at least to the extent that we do, can interpret it in any other way.
You know, man. You know what's interesting, man? Like that second night, I have to confess, I decided not to. I did the Seder. I participated in the Seder. Obviously, I didn't bring a phone to the Seder, but that day I didn't keep the second day because I consider myself, so to speak. Granted, I've been in America for the past 7 months, but I technically live in Israel, so I didn't keep the second day fully. And also it was just weird. Like I turned the light off. I was able to turn the light off because I've been sleeping here on the couch in the apartment. I'm relegated to the couch. And I don't know, when I woke up after that dream, I think it was already like twilight in the morning, you know? And I literally felt like somebody's going to walk through that door. You know, I looked at the front door of the apartment, I literally felt like somebody's going to walk through it. It was really weird. It was weird, but it wasn't weird, you know what I'm saying? That makes any sense?
Yes.
And I almost wanted to get up and pour another glass of wine and leave it there. But then I was like, that just sounds like a Santa story, you know? Like a little kid, a thing to do, like something a little kid would do, like he would leave him like a cookie and see if the cookie gets eaten, you know? Like how ridiculous is that, you know? Why would I do that? You know what I'm saying?
Because you want it to happen. Because you can accept it as real, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people in the world there are like that.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't God just grant it? So that there's people like that. So just let it be real already.
Yeah. We're still doing it for some damn reason. To a lot of people, it's symbolic, whatever, but it's just, I don't know. Yeah, everything.
Mattis Friedman was saying, with all the criticism, but he said, no, God has to just show up and do it already. That's the only thing left to do.
Yeah. I don't know.
So,
I guess we'll find out also why it had to be so slow.
I don't care. Do you think you're gonna care why it had to be so slow? I'll just be so relieved it's over that I wouldn't. You know what I mean? I'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever. I wouldn't want to think about this, even though I've heard people say, "Oh, when Mashiach comes, we're gonna look back at these days with fondness." Really?
Yeah.
I mean, who's gonna look back at it with fondness? Like, you're saying that people are gonna remember the reality of this world and look back at it with fondness? Like, all right, I mean, I guess anything's possible, but seems unfeasible.
I don't know if it's fondness. You know how like you ever play Street Fighter 2, and then when you win,
sure,
it takes you through the whole journey of how you got there.
Even though that's not what happened, it's just a fake.
It's a fake thing, no. But I'm saying, or like you ever, well, in real life, you ever see when have you ever watched those, like they have like those back in the day they had the VHS, or now they have DVD, or like videos of when a team wins the Stanley Cup, they show the whole journey of how they got to the mountain, all the adversity, or I don't know. I remember like the St. Louis Blues won the cup in 2019, and they were like last place, and then they fired their coach like halfway through the season, or like early in the season, and then they just started winning like every game almost. They got to the playoffs somehow, and then they just won. And they had like miraculous. It was like a miracle team, And there's this whole video. You watch it. They show the whole journey of that whole season and then the journey of the playoffs. I guess, and you look on it with fondness. But one of the things that you look with fondness and how horrible they freaking were, how horrible things were, that the team was left for dead. They were not supposed to make the playoffs. The coach sucked. They replaced a coach with an interim supposedly coach, who's still the coach, by the way. 3 years later, 2 years later, 3 years later. I guess that could be, what we're kind of looking at. If that makes any sense. You know?
I guess. Whatever. I don't. It's
You
like,
don't care. You don't care about the journey.
I mean, no,
Okay.
I don't.
So then you
Like,
can never
I-
have. So then you can never have your own company. Dude,
My own
sometimes I
company?
sit. Sometimes I sit, and I whenever there's like a milestone that I accomplish in my wine business, I sit and I look back at all the, the just great things that happened and all the challenges that happened, and I smile. I do say this has been a pain in the ass. I do say, if it wasn't for this one snafu, which happened a couple of years ago, that where we are today could have happened already 2 years ago. We would have been further ahead, obviously. But even that is actually, in a way, I learned a hell of a lot. It was a little bit of a tuition to pay in terms of money and time, but I learned a hell of a lot for the future. And despite all that, I sit around and I kind of smile, it gives me some element of joy.
I get that. No, I'm
You know
saying
what I
I
mean?
get that. It's just I can't look. Basically, if that's what the world was like, like you experience like difficulty, opposition, right?
Yeah.
You have to struggle, and it's a process, and then you feel accomplished. Fine, okay, fine. That exists in the world, but that somehow that can't keep my attention with all the other stuff, with shoes, with cartoon shoes getting boiled. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care about that, that kind of like 80s montage. I'm gonna be the champ. Look at my process.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can only care about that if you don't think about the really the psycho shit that's happening. Understand?
Yeah.
And it's always in your face. I don't even have an opportunity not to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care about the montage, even though I love the montage. And I wish that we lived in a reality where that was the most difficult part of life. You know what I mean? That montage.
Yeah.
When you're training, for the wrestling, was it Vision Quest?
Yeah.
Matthew Modine, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the Rocky montage. Like, if that's what life was about,
Yeah.
that's cool. I could deal with that. That makes sense to me. That's, I want to be a part of that. But like, again, it always goes back to the psycho shit. How do you enjoy the montage in the psycho world? I don't know.
Yeah.
You gotta not look at it. You can't like.
I saw somebody post a meme, right? It's a I guess one of these characters from I don't know, it's like a cartoon or anime, and the character standing there at a fork in the road, and the character is called the world. The character is the world, and the fork in the road. One road leads to this kind of castle on a hill, and the sun is shining, and it says the Great Awakening. Like our friends in Shmaman. And then the other side is the Great Reset, and it's just like dark and stormy, and lightning, and it says and that's the other side. I'm just thinking, like, why would people choose to have a great reset? It's not, Shmam is not the only person that wants a reset. These people want a reset, and why would they choose that path? Why would anybody consciously choose that kind of path? To basically, it's like Nero, burn it down and rebuild. But burn it down. Not build on top of what's already built, to just improve. Because there's a lot that's already built. It's more good than bad, what's already built. It doesn't require you to burn it, the whole thing down and rebuild from scratch. It does not. Taking away like Mashiach. I'm just saying in general, from just what we see in front of us. Why would somebody choose to burn and rebuild in place of? Or is that just Sitrach are getting it first? You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean that pretty much is a universal idea. The Sitrach gets it first, but why wouldn't they want to use what's already?
Yeah.
I don't really believe that they want to do a great reset. Do you understand? Like, this is all like a pretext.
Yeah.
And so that's why, if anybody who really wants a great reset, they wouldn't, they would want to what's the word? They would want to salvage.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's salvageable, right?
Yeah.
That it only makes sense, right? If you're intelligent, you want to do that. So to me, that could be proof that they don't really want a Great Reset. What they want is a mass die-off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your
Great
friend.
Reset is a pretext to get rid of most of the undesirables in the world. Like they don't want to share the world. They have a vision of the world, and you know, I told you about this essay that Bart Sadek wrote, right? How Adam, that's us, human beings, right? Yeah. We're the aliens on this earth. There was a species that was here before, right?
Yeah.
And they resented our presence here, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's who is doing this, you know?
Yeah.
They want the world back for themselves, you know? So they're gonna that's their reset.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, do they really want to demolish everything?
I don't know. It seems like.
Well, if that's the case, then they you know, it's like Mr. Was it Agent Smith?
Yeah.
It's like the smell, right? They want to get the smell of us.
It's the smell.
Right.
Again, Mashiach is, you know, we know Mashiach is going to smell. Whatever.
Mashiach is not going to smell. He's going to be able to smell.
Be able to smell. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Not smell. He's not going to stink. I mean, he will be able to smell who is,
right,
you know, with Hashem and who isn't.
He's going to be able to judge. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
What else shall we talk about?
I don't know, man. We're at 3 hours. What do you want to read? And then
that was 3 hours?
It was 3 hours, and we'll wrap up with the whatever.
Okay.
There's an article somebody posted.
That's professional podcasting.
Which I'm surprised it was posted in New York Times. Entitled, "They are the heirs of Nazi fortunes and they aren't apologizing." You know, these are like the grandkids who are the wealthy billionaires of Germany.
It'd be good. That's a great article to work off of because you can literally see how they're connected to everybody who is, you know, all these toolies that are running the show right now.
Yeah. So this is in New York Times, man. This is crazy. This was written by David de Jong, is the author of Nazi Billionaires, The Dark History of Germany's Wealthiest Dynasties. It's interesting they don't include, what's his face, Mr. Granted, he's not a... Well, he's a multimillionaire, probably, Mr. Schwab, but...
Mr. Schwab is a billionaire.
Yeah. But they don't include him in this. So let me just read this real quick. So it says, okay. The backbone of Germany's economy today is the car industry. It's not just that it accounts for about 10% of GDP. Brands like Porsche, Mercedes, BMW, and Volkswagen are recognized around the world as symbols of German industrial ingenuity and excellence. These companies spend billions on branding and advertising to ensure they are thought of this way. They spend less money and energy on discussing their roots. These corporations can trace their success directly back to Nazis. Ferdinand Porsche persuaded Hitler to put Volkswagen into production. His son, Ferry Porsche, that's funny, who built up the company, was a voluntary SS officer. Herbert Quandt, this guy I've read about a lot, Herbert Quandt, who built BMW into what it is today, committed war crimes. So did Friedrich Flick, who came to control Daimler-Benz, and they merged with Mercedes-Benz. Unlike Mr. Quandt, Mr. Flick was convicted at Nuremberg. This isn't exactly a secret in modern Germany, but it is happily ignored. These titans of industry, the men who played a central role in building the country's post-war economic miracle, are still widely championed and celebrated for their business acumen, if not their wartime deeds. Their names adorn buildings and foundations and prizes. In a country that is so often praised for its culture of remembrance and contrition, an honest, transparent acknowledgement of the wartime activities of some of Germany's richest families remains at best an afterthought. But until these companies and Germany are more open about the Nazi history of their patriarchs, reckoning will remain incomplete. I've been reporting on these families for a decade, first as a reporter for Bloomberg News, then while writing a book about German business dynasties and their Third Reich histories. I've poured over hundreds of historical documents and academic studies, as well as many memoirs. I've spoken to historians and visited archives across Germany and beyond, and I've been shocked by what I've learned. Take the Quandts, Today, two of the family's heirs of a net worth of roughly $38 billion control BMW, Mini, and Rolls-Royce, and have significant holdings in the chemical and technology industries. The family's patriarchs, Gunther Quandt and his son Herbert Quandt, were members of the Nazi Party who subjected as many as 57,500 people to forced or slave labor in their factories. Again, this sounds like Schwab's father, you know?
Exactly.
Producing weapons and batteries for the German war effort. Gunther Quandt acquired companies from Jews who were forced to sell their businesses at below market value and from others who had their property seized after Germany occupied their countries. Herbert Quandt helped with at least two such dubious acquisitions, and also oversaw the planning, building, and dismantling of an uncompleted concentration subcamp in Poland. Let's go on. After the war ended, the Quandts were denazified in a flawed legal process in post-war Germany that saw most Nazi perpetrators get away with their crimes. In 1960, 5 years after inheriting a fortune from his father, Herbert Quandt saved BMW from bankruptcy. He became the company's largest shareholder and began restructuring the company. Today, two of his children, Stefan Quandt and Suzanne Klatten, are Germany's wealthiest family with near majority control of BMW. The siblings manage their fortunes in a town near Frankfurt from a building named after their grandfather. The modern-day Quandts can't claim ignorance of the actions of their father and grandfather. The information above is included in a 2011 study commissioned by the Quandt dynasty for 4 years after a critical TV documentary exposed some of the family's involvement in the Third Reich. Despite commissioning the study, which was conducted by a historian and a team of researchers, the BMW heirs seem to prefer to move on as though nothing had been learned. It's called Das Schweigen der Quandts. It's a documentary in German. In his sole interview in response to the study's findings, Stefan Quandt described the family's distancing from his father and grandfather as a necessary but a massive and painful conflict. And yet Gunther Quandt's name remains on their headquarters, and Stefan Quandt awards an annual journalism prize named after his father. Stefan Quandt said he believed his father's life's work justified it. Incredible. In the interview, Stefan Quandt said that the family's most important goals in commissioning the study were openness and transparency. But for another decade, the website of the Herbert Quandt Media Prize featured a biography of its namesake that made no mention of his activities during the Nazi era, just like they don't talk about Schwab's dad at all, except for saying he joined the board of his father's battery company in 1940. That changed only in late October 2021. It was more than a decade after the study that was produced, but conspicuously only a few months after I had asked the family a question about it. Today, an expanded biography mentions part of the study's findings, such as Herbert Quandt's responsibility for staffing at battery factories in Berlin where forced and slave laborers were exploited. But it still omits Herbert Quandt's involvement in the concentration subcamp project, his use of prisoners of war at his private estate, and his help of acquiring companies seized from Jews. In 2016, BMW's... What is that blinking sound?
Blinking?
Yeah, on your end. It's just like something... not blinking, like a...
I don't hear
beep, beep, like a beep. Okay.
Nothing on my end.
In 2016, BMW's charitable arm was considered under the name BMW Foundation Herbert Quandt. 1 second, maybe somebody called me. 1 second. I just want to make sure they did not. Un momento, sir. Okay, no, they did not. Okay, fine. 1 second. 1 second. Oh, that's funny. In 2016, BMW's charitable arm was considered under the name BMW Foundation Herbert Quandt. It is now a major global charity with about $150 million in assets, supporting sustainability goals and impacting investing. Stefan Quandt and Ms. Klatten are among its founding donors. If the foundation's website is to be believed, Herbert Quandt's entire biography consists of one act. He secured the independence of BMW. The charity's motto is to promote responsible leadership and inspire leaders. What is it? Get off the phone! Ching, chang, chong.
And that actually might be the
Jesus.
ping pong of my pans.
Oh my
in
God.
the kitchen.
Okay.
So it's not the chong, it's just the pans.
Promote leadership, responsible leadership, and inspire leaders worldwide to work towards a more peaceful, just, and sustainable future. Again, with this crap. BMW and its controlling shareholders, Mr. Quandt and Ms. Klatten, are unique in their revisionism. In 2019, the Ferry Porsche Foundation announced that it would endow Germany's first professorship of corporate history at the University of Stuttgart. The Porsche company established the foundation in 2018, 7 years after Ferry Porsche designed its first sports car. Dealing with one's own history is a full-time commitment. The charity's chairman wrote in a statement, "It's precisely this critical reflection that the Ferry Porsche Foundation wants to encourage, because to know where you're going, you have to know where you've come from. He could have started closer to home. The foundation is named after a man who voluntarily applied to the SS in 1938, was admitted as an officer in 1941, and lied about it for the rest of his life. During most of the war, Mr. Porsche was busy leading the Porsche company in Stuttgart, which exploited hundreds of coerced workers. As Porsche's chief executive in the post-war decades, he surrounded himself with former high-ranking SS officers. In his 1976 autobiography, Mr. Porsche gave a twisted historical account full of anti-Semitic statements about Porsche's Jewish co-founder Adolf Rosenberger. He even accused Mr. Rosenberger of extortion after he was forced to flee Nazi Germany. The truth was that in 1935, Ferry Porsche received Mr. Rosenberger's company shares after his grandfather Ferdinand Porsche and brother-in-law Anton Piech brought the co-founder out of the company, paying far below market value for his shares. Today, Porsche doesn't just sponsor professorships or make sports cars. Together with their cousins, the Piechs, the Porsches control the Volkswagen Group, which includes Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini. There you go. There goes your Countach. Seat, Seat, Skoda, and Volkswagen. The combined net worth of the Porsche Piech clan is estimated at around $20 billion. They are now preparing to spin Porsche off from the Volkswagen Group and list the sports car company in what is shaping up to be one of the largest initial public offerings of 2022. The Porsches have never publicly addressed their activities of their patriarchs during the Third Reich, and it wasn't only Ferry Porsche who was implicated. Ferdinand Porsche, who designed the Volkswagen during the war, ran the Volkswagen factory with Mr. Piech. There are tens of thousands of people who used as forced slave laborers to mass-produce weapons. The Ferry Porsche Foundation endowed the professorship at the University of Stuttgart because members of its history department published a company-funded study in 2017 about the Porsche company's origins in the Nazi era, but the study seemed to leave a lot out. Somehow, none of Mr. Rosenberger's personal papers were included in the research. The study also mischaracterized the nature of Mr. Rosenberger's share sale. The more I looked at the study, the more it began to look more like a partial whitewash than a full accounting. Then there are the Flicks. Friedrich Flick controlled one of Germany's largest steel, coal, and arms conglomerates during the Third Reich. In 1947, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison for war crimes and crimes against humanity. At his Nuremberg trial, he was found guilty of using forced and slave labor, financially supporting the SS, and looting a steel factory. After his early release in 1950, he rebuilt his conglomerate and became the controlling shareholder of Daimler-Benz, then Germany's largest car maker. In 1985, Deutsche Bank bought the Flick conglomerate, making his descendants billionaires. Today, a branch of the Flick dynasty worth about $4 billion maintains a private foundation in Dusseldorf named after their patriarch. The foundation, which has a seat on a board of one of Germany's most prestigious universities and directs money to educational, medical, and cultural causes, primarily in Germany and Austria, is still named after a convicted Nazi war criminal in whose factories and mines tens of thousands of people worked in forced or slave labor, including thousands of Jews. But looking at the foundation's website, you would never learn of the Flick fortune's tainted past. How can it be that three of Germany's most powerful business families, their companies, and their charities are so out of step with the country's lauded remembrance culture? When I asked Jörg Appelhans, the longtime spokesman for Stefan Quandt and Miss Klatten, about their use of their grandfather's and father's name on their headquarters and media prize, he sent me the email saying, "We don't believe that renaming streets, places, or institutions is a responsible way to deal with historic figures, because doing so prevents a conscious exposure to their role in history and instead fosters its neglect." So it's kind of like what people say about the Confederate statues, in America. This is an especially shameless contortion. These families aren't showing the bloody history behind their fortunes, except sometimes in commissioned studies written in dense academic German, whose findings then they leave out when describing their family history online. They aren't even dealing with them in an honest fashion. They are in fact doing the opposite, commemorating their patriarchs without mentioning their Nazi-era activities. Representatives for the billionaire Flicks declined to comment when I approached their family office. When I asked why there is no biography of Ferry Porsche on the website of its namesake foundation, Sebastian Rudolph, the foundation's chairman, said that it is examining to what extent this should also be represented on the foundation website, adding that we view the life's work of Ferry Porsche in a differentiated light. For decades, remembrance culture has been a central component of German society. Across German cities and villages, you'll find Stolperstein, the brass and concrete cubes with the names and life dates of victims of Nazi persecution. Memorials, big and small, are everywhere. In cafes from Berlin to Frankfurt and from Hamburg to Munich, there are daily conversations about collective guilt and atonement. These are reflective, nuanced, and above all, aware. Yet this movement toward facing the past is somehow bypassing many of Germany's most revered tycoons and their dark histories.
Well, can I stop you for a moment?
Yeah.
Just for a moment?
Yeah.
It's the same thing as in America. So what are they doing?
Yeah.
The Democrats, right?
Yeah.
They're making all white people feel guilty about everything that their ancestors did during slavery in the Civil War and before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's the Democrats, right? The KKK,
of course,
all that.
Of course. Of course. They want to obfuscate their own thing. Yeah. So,
right. So the people who are in charge of the atrocity are now spearheading the attempt to atone for it by using everybody else to atone for it, except for them.
Yeah. Listen, this is one more paragraph. Okay. The more time I spent learning about these business dynasties, their tainted past.
Sorry.
It's okay. Fortunes and companies, and their desire to ignore or cover up how involved their patriarchs were with the Third Reich, the more I begin to doubt how deep, sincere, and lasting this culture of remembrance in Germany really is. Yeah, man, it's BS. They just feel guilty. The car industry is quintessentially German, so very central to not just the country's economy, but also to its identity. Would a repudiation of these tycoons be a disavowal of national identity? Do these men need to be championed because they remain potent symbols of Germany's resurgence in economic might? Does celebrating business success still matter more in Germany than acknowledging crimes against humanity? Or is the real answer something simpler? Perhaps the country is beholden to a few billionaires and their global companies who care more about protecting their reputations and their fortunes than about facing up to the past. Listen, man, I'll say, it's ironic. By Jewish kind of philosophy and mentality, when people admit things, you respect them more. Like, Michael Milken, the guy who did the junk bonds thing? You know this guy?
Actually, no, but... Okay.
Michael Milken was a guy on Wall Street in the 80s. He got sent... He's not like a, evil guy, but he did stuff with white-collar criminal, with junk bonds, high-yield bonds. And he got sentenced here. How long was he sentenced for? He was sentenced to 98 counts of racketeering and fraud, and he was sentenced to he was guilty to 6 counts of securities fraud and tax violations in 1990. Basically, he agreed to pay $200 million in fines, and then he paid $400 million to investors. He settled the lawsuit. Basically, paid like a total of almost like $1 billion. But now the guy, what does he do now? He has upon his release from prison in 1993. It was all shtick, obviously, the whole sending him to prison. He founded the Prostate Cancer Foundation for prostate cancer research. And today, he's lauded as this, he's a philanthropist. He still has his money, some of his money, which he did get to keep. But the guy basically admitted wrongdoing. He went to prison for it. And life goes on. He's able to do philanthropy. He's able to be recognized for the philanthropy. So what I understand is Germans don't understand that if you just admit it, no one's going to take your money away. If anything, you'll be more trusted and respected if you just admit the stuff. And maybe the people who don't buy your cars out of the Badavka because you are who you are, there's Hasidic Jews don't buy BMWs and all this kind of stuff. Maybe they'll start buying your cars. Don't you think?
I don't think that their objective is to kind of, get clear. You understand? To clear the air. They want to continue doing. Yeah. They just regrouped. Do you understand?
They want to continue being the anti-Semites that they are, and obfuscate.
Not only that, they want to continue in their family legacies.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna, they're gonna make everybody else. They're gonna use everybody else as a pawn.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, a lot of the Germans, right, who were these families, for instance, right, they weren't raped by Russians. Yeah. They stayed pure. They look at a lot of Germans in Germany as they're no longer pure. This is not what Herr Hitler had in mind. Yeah. They're all poisoned with Slavic genes. This is not the Germany of the past. This is not the future, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So, right? So, right? So You know, that's not. So they're going to use these, you know, these like not completely Germans, right? This is according to their view, right? They're going to apologize for what their families did, meaning the people who are not as directly involved are going to apologize for what the main families did. The main families are not going to apologize for anything. In fact, they're going to continue growing in wealth and in power. They're going to continue with their goals and ambitions. And here we are today.
Yeah.
One of them is literally leading this whole situation right now. Literally. A Nazi.
Yeah.
Who tried to build weapons of mass destruction. 2 generations of that.
Yeah.
So can I read from the cinema book a little bit? Just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, last time we were talking about Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Right? And there's some interesting like things. They were talking about the year of 1648 and how that was related to Blaise Pascal and his theory, right?
Yeah.
Having to do with time travel, right? The timeline, and then the Doc Brown's address in Hill Valley in the movie, right, was 1648.
Yeah.
His address is 16. I'm sorry, not 1648, 1640. Okay. Okay. So, and then we have the DeLorean's flux capacitor. Do you recall what that is?
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
He opened the car and he saw this like kind of like this Y, this like glowing Y neon thing.
Yeah.
That's the flux capacitor. This is the key component of the time machine, right? It is a triangle consisting of 3 flashing Geissler-style tubes, creating a line of infinity on the Euclidean plane. Interesting. The device came to Emmett Brown, that's Doc Brown in the movie, in a vision when he slipped.
I gotta pause you, man.
I
gotta pause you. So just people will walk in. 1 second. All right, you were saying?
Yeah. So basically, this idea for the device, right, in the movie, right, came to Doc Brown when he slipped on wet porcelain, right, while trying to hang a clock in his bathroom and hit his head on the porcelain sink, I think. Okay, and this occurred in November 5th, 1955.
Yeah.
So now there's a Wizard of Oz connection. The Wizard of Oz takes center stage in Chapter 5. Oz contains remember, folks, just for the folks at home who are tuning in, this is a book called Cinema Symbolism. It's written by, oh my God, what's his name? Well, last name is Sullivan, okay?
Yeah.
And he's talking about how the archetypes, the Jungian archetypes, which have always existed, right? We've known them as the Jungian archetypes, right? But they're used by the top tier of society to influence the rest of the people. This is the secret of how they communicate and how they form the mindset of entire societies. Yeah. Okay, this is the secret language. That's why we're reading this book, so that we can learn how they're doing it, so we can recognize it when it's happening. Yeah. Okay, the Wizard of Oz takes center stage in Chapter 5. Oz contains multi-layered concealed imagery. Yeah. On one level, it is a political allegory of 1900 American socioeconomic culture, while on a deeper esoteric level, it documents the initiate's journey into the mystery tradition, experiencing gnosis, or ascensio, or self-awakening. Yeah. Okay? You have all these mystery schools going all the way back to the Erevrov, right? Yeah. So, in Chapter 6, the occultism of the James Bond films and storylines, his Bond girls, right, and Bond's arch enemies are discussed. Yeah. While many of the legends, folklore, and mythology surrounding films' most recognizable horror monsters is the purview of Chapter 7, horror films in general are analyzed in this chapter concordantly. Okay, Chapters 8 9 and 10 document the hero's journey, or monomyths, described by mythologist Joseph Campbell, incorporated into the Star Wars films.
Sir, by the way, I want to let you know very quickly, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to be watching the Leviah of the person who this episode is dedicated to is going to be, cast in online, like privately. So
okay, I'll hurry up.
I'm just letting you know.
Okay, so, okay, fine. So, Star Wars films, the Matrix trilogy, and J.R.R. Tolkien's epic Lord of the Rings. If the protagonist is the hero-savior archetype, then the monomyth is this character's archetypical adventure. Yeah. The monomyth, okay?
Yeah, monomyth.
Chapter 11 explores notions related to the goddess in film, concluding with an analysis of the shadow side of female sexuality. That's Lilith, right? Presented, that's not what they said in the book. That's one of the ways we portray it. The Jews presented on screen in Black Swan, for which Natalie Portman won the Best Actress Oscar. Also discussed is surreal and quasi-diabolical masturbatory projections of 9.5 weeks. Okay? Okay, chapter 12 explores the symbolism and plot lines related to the Hermetic sciences and Gnosticism. Movies covered in this chapter are Fight Club, Blade Runner, Big Trouble in Little China, The Truman Show, all great movies, right? Cinema, symbolism, a guide. Are you saying stuff?
No, my father just sneezed.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cinema symbolism, the name of this book, a guide to esoteric imagery in popular movies, concludes with an analysis of some of the hidden symbolisms in comedies, discussions of the genuine weirdness, that is the oddball, the wild Satori of Edward D. Wood Jr., right? Whether you are familiar with my last work, The Royal Ark of Enoch, The Impact of Masonic Ritual, Philosophy and Symbolism, or new to this material, this author is certain you will enjoy cinema symbolism. This book is written and presented in a way so that it can be understood by a seasoned veteran who is well versed in symbolism, occultism, and mysticism, or a neophyte. Or as he's playfully using the term Padawan learner, from Star Wars. Either way, please read and enjoy Symbolism, a guide to esoteric imagery in popular movies. So everything that we've read from this book so far has all been this introductory character. I mean, this introductory chapter. So we haven't actually gotten into the nitty gritty of any of the movies. So he's going to start with 9.5 weeks of all movies. Yeah. You ever see it?
9.5 weeks. That's was directed by.
That's Adrian Lyne, I believe.
I don't think I saw it. No, I didn't see it. It's with
It's like the granddaddy
Mickey
of
Rourke.
Cinemax.
Yes. I didn't see it, but I know. That's was like the movie that was supposed to make Mickey Rourke's career take off, and it didn't. Or it kind of did, but it didn't.
I don't know. It's weird. I mean, he had a pretty decent career as a well-known actor. I think it's his personality that did. Yeah. But anyway. Okay, so we have this character, Elizabeth McGraw, played by Kim Basinger. Yeah. So she alchemically transforms herself into a narcissistic Venus, or Aphrodite, whose black silk stockings are her fetish, signifying her shadowy, lustful desires in 1986's 9.5 Weeks. God, that was 1986? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Elizabeth narcissistically flaunts her black silk stockings. She's an erotic temptress. That's one of the archetypes, by the way, right? The temptress, the seductress, whatever, who exposes herself to unnatural, artificial, and quote-unquote Luciferian light, while contemplating and anticipating and desiring, he says masturbation. He uses that word a lot. Sorry, folks. Yeah. The slideshow, which hypnotizes her, features paintings of women touching themselves and weird, spellbinding creatures, causing her to be aroused. Okay, so succumbing to her fetish, Elizabeth wears a garter belt and black silk. Every time I hear that word garter belt, I think of Gartle, and it disturbs me. Yeah. Elizabeth wears a garter belt and black silk stockings in a conscious effort to release her shadow self, while experiencing passionate autoerotic felicity. Excitedly hoisting her legs into the air, her dark stuff. This sounds like one of those novels, romance novels.
Yeah, they said that it was the original 50 Shades, this movie.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Excited? No, the way he's describing this, you know, he's like, excitedly. It sounds like Fabio should be on the cover.
Yeah.
Excitedly, maybe you should be on the cover. Excitedly hoisting her legs into the air, her dark stockings and lingerie inaugurate Elizabeth into a pleasure dome of her own lustful creation. Okay, I'm trying to rush through this. Okay, put another way, through fetish exploration, the wearing of black silky lingerie fused with avant-garde masturbation, Elizabeth liberates her Jungian shadow while suppressing her conscious ego.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay. So we have 1 second. He has like a list. These are all, I suppose, notes here. But okay, let me just continue on. Second. Okay, chapter 1. Wow, I thought we started chapter 1, but we didn't even get to chapter 1. Here we go. Chapter 1. What an excellent day for an exorcism. There were several ways of determining that a person was a demoniac, including facial swelling, grimaces, insensitivity and leprosy, immobility, twitching of the stomach, staring, French answers to Latin questions, and the absence of bleeding from cuts. This is a quote from Colin de Plancey, Dictionnaire Infernal, 1818. Another quote, especially important is the warning to avoid conversations with the demon. We may ask, what is relevant? But anything beyond that is dangerous. He is a liar. The demon is a liar, okay? He will lie to confuse us, but he will also mix lies with the truth to attack us. Amazing. The attack is psychological, Damien, and powerful. So don't listen. Remember that. Do not listen. This is Father Lancaster Merrin from The Exorcist.
May I ask a question? Where is this going?
These are quotes that he's going to discuss. These are movies that he's going to discuss. And folks at home, Greg is having issues understanding why we're learning this, okay?
Yeah.
But we're hoping that you'll catch up with us, Greg.
Yes.
Okay? We can bitch and moan about, these people, these toolies, right? Yeah. And their power over us, and how come their power over society, and how come they're getting away with what they're doing. Yeah. This is the tool. This is how they're doing it, and you don't want to learn.
No, I do want to learn.
ADD boy.
I have to run, because my family just walked in, and I have to run. I literally have to run, physically. I think we should do
chapter 1 finally.
I think we should do this in the next episode. We should cover only this.
Only this? Oh, that's okay. Cool.
To get deeper into this.
If you want to do another episode later on, I'm down, because I'm sick all day lying around in bed anyway.
Possibly. All
right, let me know.
All right, sir. It's been 3.5 hours.
Has it really?
Yes, we covered a lot of ground. Believe it or not.
Folks at home, tell your friends about us.
Yeah.
We
I'm
like doing this.
I'm gonna take a sense out of my sister's book with regards to her company. They don't get a ton of users, but the users that they do get are very engaged. That's kind of like us. However, what we would like is more users, because we know that all our users will be engaged just based on the users that are engaged already.
A lot of this information, most of the world needs to know.
Yeah.
They need it.
Yeah. That's basically it. All right, sir.
All right, man.
I shall catch you on the flip side.
Arrivederci.
All right.
Arrivederci.
Peace out.
Mission accomplished. All right.
Later.
All right, man.